people don't really trust your qualifications. They want to know your experience beside things. Like when we connected, like you never asked me for my CV. We connected through story and similar points. So when someone's going through that, when you realise the gift that's within, the blessing within the lesson, you don't want to take it away from them. You want to walk with them and show them, hey, you're not alone. We don't need reminded to live in our values. But what I would say is your biggest values come from your biggest voids, what you perceive you didn't have growing up. And that's when the trauma comes up. I'm not a big fan of motivation.
Okay.
Motivation, you need a motive, you need a reason. And if your reasons for doing it is for acceptance and approval of someone else, your reason is all wrong. We'll only make time for things that are truly valuable. Now, this is what I've made up. I believe there's 4 categories. Master value, the default values, social values, and our personal values.
Welcome back to another episode. My guest today is Mr. Mark Reed. He is a teacher and healer and doesn't like to be put in boxes. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation because Mark and I bumped into each other in the gym here in Bali, and I was sharing with him some stories about myself, and then he started opening up about his past and how he's been healing his trauma and his inner child and how that shows up as an adult. And there's so much stuff we're going to get into. So Mark, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah. So let's talk about the inner child real quick. So when you say that word to people, those words to people, a lot of people are like, inner child, like how does that relate to who I am now? So what does that mean? The inner child.
Yeah, it's like one or two things, right? It's like people go, I don't know what it means, or it's another kind of fancy buzzword that everyone's throwing around in the spiritual healing community. So basically, the relationships that you were exposed to growing up from your primary caregivers, so not everyone has mum and dad, different circumstances, but those early childhood relationships basically shape all of our relationships as adults. And one of my teachers once said, we're all little children in adult bodies. And the inner child is actually just giving yourself permission to have more fun and play in life, because somewhere along the way, life became very serious and we start then going into boxes where we think I have to turn up a certain way. And it's actually really simple. We think we have to turn up a certain way to be loved. That is it. So it's giving ourselves permission to go back to what we love to do as kids before the conditioning, the programming, limited beliefs, trauma, XYZ started to shape who we are.
Yeah. And you just by the way, so if people are listening, they're probably like, where is he from? You're from Scotland, right?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Scotland?
For my sins. The southwest. It's called a place called Ayrshire. It's about 45 minutes from Glasgow.
And so how was it for you? How was your inner child? Like how was it growing up in Scotland? Like what was it like? What was your childhood like?
What I've kind of realised is that geography doesn't define your inner child. It doesn't really define anything. I've travelled all over the world. I've lived in different places in the world, but it's going to sound really cliche and cheesy, but the greatest distance we'll ever travel is here to here. Like mastering the 6 inches between the ears and having the courage to go south into here.
You mean head to your heart, right?
Yeah. And
head to your heart, right?
Head to heart. Yeah. And if the inner child doesn't feel safe enough to do that, we spend a lot of our time in our heads. My inner child has experienced a lot. Like on the surface, I had a great childhood. Like typical working class family, mum and dad who loved me, still do. But it's very cultural in terms of there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of shouting, there's a lot of arguing that's just classed as how we speak to each other. As Scottish, we always kind of we've got this caricature of being a very angry race, which then we hide behind that with humour. And we're so much more. We've given the world so much. The steam engine, the penicillin, the TV, the telephone. So we're a magical little race, but I feel that we're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We're always kind of hyper vigilant, looking over our shoulder. And that was very much my childhood. I was always kind of, even though I knew on some level I had parents that loved me and loved me dearly, I was always on edge, waiting for what mood my mum was in, because she was very fiery, very passionate, very loving, but it always kind of came as a cost. It was always like, oh, I never could embody peace for an extended period of time. And then I'm sure we'll get into this in more depth. My father, again, it was attached to excelling or performing, like academia, because he was a principal, or football, or soccer, if we have American viewers. So yeah, my inner child was always, there was, I know you love me, but there was always a but, and I never felt as if it was fully unconditional, which I don't think it is as a human. I think divine love is unconditional. Human love in the form of relationships have conditions. Even if you're coming from a higher conscious perspective, where, like, listen, you're crossing a boundary here, I don't like how you're speaking to me, don't do that, it's still a condition. So love has no conditions, relationships do, and I think they need to. And it's the same with kids as well. Like, so I want to be clear here, like, my parents never did anything wrong per se. They did what they thought was best based on their level of awareness. But my inner child that never had the analytical or mind formed from an early age couldn't discern between why was mum and dad being that way, or this must be my fault, and then I take it on, the analytical mind starts to form, and then it kind of gets trapped in what we know as the body mind, the subconscious mind. And if you're not aware of the thoughts that you have, the actions you're taking until you've done them, and then you're having like a negative emotion or feeling to give you feedback, or, oh, that wasn't very pleasurable, then we start to become aware of it. But for so many of us, especially from like 0 to 2, 3 years old, the majority of the psyche is already started to form, because it's deeply embedded in our unconscious layer of self, and then the subconscious up to like 2, 7, 8, all the way right through to socially developmental years when we get to high school, when we place a lot of emphasis on our peers. So yeah, to answer your question, my inner child was on the surface very, very happy, very loved. Like, I never wanted for anything. I had a mum and dad that worked hard and gave us everything. Like, not from a spoiled point of view, but yeah, we didn't want for much. But the everyday emotional peace, I don't think I've ever really had from a conscious memory, which is interesting to hear me say that out loud. Good question.
Emotional peace. What does that mean to you, like emotional peace? So, like,
as an outsider looking at my life, looking at what I had, the house that we lived in, cars, both parents working, little sister, we lived in the good end of my town. What have I got to worry about? But I couldn't communicate certain things. I just knew I felt really fidgety, and I hope my mum doesn't shout at me here. And the performance that I'm saying to that I'm equating to my father from academia and sports, it was the same thing for my mum in everyday life. I had to be like a good boy. I was scared to do anything wrong. It just made her shout. To be honest, I'm feeling quite tight even just now as I talk about it. So you just learn how to navigate it and deal with it. It's not really a good or bad thing. It's just a thing at the end of the day. But peace for me, yeah, it was just that ability, that what I was looking for was just, can I just be myself without any repercussions? And I feel that I never really had that. If I performed well, I got love. If I never, there was consequences.
What were the consequences?
I felt rejected by my father. I felt not good enough. I felt in later life that started to manifest as unworthiness. I would sabotage health and my relationships and even business career and the other 4 areas of life that I believe we're here to master. But yeah, I became very sheepish, and that hypervigilance was even more. Like, my father would literally walk past me in the house and not speak to me for weeks at a time.
Really?
Yeah. If I never played well, if I had a good game, I had the opposite. He would speak to anybody. I saw the little man today. Oh, he just dropped the shoulder and knew the defender was going there. And outside pass through. Oh, amazing. had a bad game, he would do this look, you know that way you know someone's looking at you, and like my coaches and everything would shout, "Unlucky Mark," or Sparky was my nickname. "Unlucky Sparky, head up, you'll get it the next time." And I just never heard those. I was aware of the words, but I never took on those kind words, those compliments, those confidence boosters. I just knew my dad was staring right through me. And then, of course, you don't look. Eventually, you look. And I'd look up, and he would just be this kind of, this posture, slumped to the side, look me up and down, and go. Phew. Then he would do this little walk away for 5 yards, put his hands in his pockets and sigh, and then walk back. So, I say my mum was quite fiery. At least you knew where you stood with her. My dad was really passive aggressive. And as I said, it was linked to performance. So that's how it showed up. And I just felt, I felt emotionally neglected, to be honest with you. It was one of the big inner child wounds. It's a lot. There's 6 kind of major ones, and abandonment, rejection, and neglect was a big thing. And then it led into like trust and betrayal issues as I got older. And I would struggle to make friends with particularly males. I never really trusted them. I had this deep thought that what's the point in celebrating, because you're only going to get caned. It might be a day, it might be a week, but there's no point. Like, I couldn't ever, nothing was ever good enough. I couldn't enjoy the moment because I knew there was a negative one coming. And I'm painting my parents in a bad light here, but the opposite was also true. But they weren't aware, and to be honest, neither was I until I started going deeper into my healing journey as an adult.
Yeah, something similar happened to me when I was a kid. That's what we were talking about at the gym, actually. Same thing, like I was playing football and then I'd make a mistake because I was a defender, right? So I remember one time I was jumping up to, I don't know why, but I put my hand on the ball in the penalty area and then they gave them a penalty and they scored. And then all I heard on the sideline was just like, "Aaron!" Like, obviously I knew I fucked up, but I just like heard that voice and I was like, "Oh, fuck. I really fucked up." And then in the car, my brother, same thing. Like, he was also playing football, and then, like my dad would just give us an earful of like all the mistakes that we made during the game. Yeah. And it just like
big list.
Yeah. And you just think, fuck, I can't make a mistake now. Yeah. You know, like, this is it. Like, fuck.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that, brother. Yeah. And it was like, even when you had the list of the things you did well, I would bypass that and I would focus on that one thing, because I knew if I didn't. And it was like a self-preservation mechanism. It was like, if I didn't bring up, "I know I fucked up that touch there, I went the other way," he would bring it up.
Yeah.
So it was kind of it's like leaving the relationship before they leave you. It's like trying to limit the damage. And
then we've connected with other guys, like that. How that showed up is like, maybe you were feeling like a bit of pain there, like, oh, if I can connect with this guy, then he's going to hurt me, kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was, I always say to people, for the majority of my life, I've sought popularity over purpose. Excuse me, because there was this desperate need to fit in. I just wanted to be accepted by any means necessary. So I would abandon who I really was to try and fit in with everyone else, because what I had learned was it wasn't safe to be me, the normal little guy that makes mistakes. I had to be this perfect human all the time, and if I make mistakes, then I don't get love. And it was deeper than that as well, because my mum would scream at him when we got home. Sometimes she wouldn't come and watch, she was busy with my sister or working or whatever, but I would hear them at the end of the hallway. She'd be like, "It's only a fucking game, Tam." My dad's name's Tom or Thomas, but it's Tam in Scotland. "It's only a fucking game, Tam." And I would hear him. It was the same stuff he would say to me. He would say silent, and for about 30 minutes in the car until we got to this one roundabout, and then it was kind of like waiting on it coming. "You didn't want the fucking ball today. You were hiding, fucking hiding. What I would give to have your skill." He's like, "You didn't want the fucking ball." "Yeah, yes I did." I'm trying not to cry, because that's another thing I had from my mum growing up, was never let them see you cry. She never said don't cry, But I internalised that as don't cry. It was never let them see you cry, wait till you get home. I had checked out that sentence by that point. It was just don't cry. Crying's bad. Crying makes you less of a man, and then you start to connect it all. And then I would hear him say to my mum, he's got skill up to his armpits, but he's got no speed. He's too fucking slow. He's got to beat the guy 5 times before he can get past him. And my mum, protecting her offspring, she would make excuses for me. She's like, he's not even hit fucking puberty yet. Like, some of the boys in their team, like, they're men. They're young men. They've all had their sprout. He's grown. He's like, you need to go off his fucking back. It's only a game. So I would hear them arguing, and then I would equate that's my fault. So if I don't play good, I don't get love from my father, because I was so addicted to his praise that I could not handle the reprimand. Couldn't handle the reality of the duality as a 3D human. It was like up, positive thinking, love and light. That's why it doesn't work, because you're suppressing this, and of course when it comes up you can't handle it. So I get so off in that, and equated all my self-worth to performing for my father, that I couldn't handle the opposite. But in my head was, I'm responsible for my mum and dad arguing as well, so I'm not worthy of dad's love if I don't play well. If I don't play well, mum and dad argue because of me. And I remember hearing my mum a few times say, there's 2 Waynes in this house. Wayne is Scottish for kid. So she was talking about my little sister. She's like, there's 2 Waynes in this fucking house, but no one gives her a second thought. She gets dragged from pillar to post. And when I was playing football as a youngster, like, we didn't have small-sided games. It was like 11-a-side pitches, so you were all over a local region. And where I was in Ayrshire, even before now, it's now like north, east and south Ayrshire. It was just one. So you could be from what is now the north right the way down to south, and you'd be an hour and X amount more. And then same again on the way back, and it was a lonely car drive the way back. And like, if my mum and my sister was there, I was thinking, oh yes, at least my dad will not shout at me here with my mum there. But then you would hear it when they got home, because my dad would just shut down. He would just be miserable for the rest of the weekend. So my inner child was, I was ashamed as a person. So look how I'm making my father feel, which of course is crazy when you say it out loud as a fully functioning adult, but as a young kid, it was just like, I just wanted to make sure my dad was happy and loved and calm and peaceful and proud of me. So yeah, the 3 big things that I would hear was, if I never played well, I never get my dad's love. I wasn't worthy of his love. My mum and dad arguing was my fault, and I'm robbing my sister of her childhood. So it was this pressure cooker to perform for a very early age.
Damn, that is intense at a young age to take all that on.
Yeah, and I never even knew.
Yeah,
I just knew I didn't feel good.
Yeah,
it's not until you unpack it later on, because it's a very UK thing, I feel, where we have that kind of authoritarian parent. And it's only when you dive into this work that when you can see your parents as young kids as well, you start to have a bit more compassion and empathy. And it's not that you then, and for the viewers watching this, please don't spiritually or emotionally bypass yourself. You can't look back with a 2020 hindsight. I mean, I'm 39 years old. My first Player of the Year trophy was when I was 10, so I can't look back with the mindset and the wisdom and the pain and the struggle and the lessons and blessings as a 39-year-old. I need to go back through the eyes of the 10-year-old. And if you had no filter and you weren't going to get into trouble, what would you say to your father in that moment? What would you say to your mum? What was your needs that you really wanted to, that you pushed down? And yeah, I don't go too much into this because I might lead into another question when I answer it, but when I'd said about going up to Mount Batur, that's where I really released that, and I wasn't thinking it. It came from the body, and it was very, very fucking primal, and it was good. It was needed.
Yeah, so you went. That was recently though, right? So
maybe about 2 months ago, and this is the thing. It's just a little bit of humour for like, I don't know what platforms I think you've put this on, but anywhere there's a comment box, like, put in here, please, like, those that are consciously on the healing journey, how many times have you said, yeah, but I've dealt with that. And I've done inner child work, the father wound, the mother wound, so many different times, but it's like being a student at school. You've learned it from maybe junior school consciousness, and then up, it's like high school. I don't know the American ladder. Mine would be primary school, high school, then like university, and then the school of life. So it wasn't that I hadn't dealt with it, but I've dealt with it with this level of consciousness, and then as you heal when you go up, because we can't, first law of thermodynamics, like the energy cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. So these people that say things like, oh, we're going to delete these life moments, number one, bullshit. It's not possible. Two, why would you want to when you understand the fullness of what that pain is actually giving you? Because you're only seeing it through this lens. There's actually a whole other kaleidoscope. So I never say that when I'm helping people heal, and nor do I actually say you need to forgive anyone other than self. So what the inner child was doing for me back then was just holding on really, really tight. So you've got to go back in to that level, how you were thinking, how you were acting, how you're feeling, and what would you do if there was no filter on it. So please don't emotionally bypass yourself, and don't give yourself shit if you go, yeah, I've dealt with this. You have. It's just you've got an opportunity to deal with it from a higher consciousness.
So are you ever done with that then, dealing with your childhood?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so, but the shadow work is, to me, like, I love Jungian psychology. You would ask me what books do I like anything of Carl Jung, psychology and understanding the mind, but even that as well, I think we've outgrown the original way to do shadow work, because even by its definition it's very psychological. So now with deeper understanding and studies into the nervous system, particularly the vagus nerve and the gut-brain axis, and the amount of data, the afferent data that goes this way rather than the efferent data going down, we realise that the body will keep the score. When the mind forgets, the body remembers, and it's not one or other, but we need to integrate both. But I love shadow work because, to me, like, trying to ignore it, the suppressed parts, you're just going to live a fractured life, and eventually it's going to have to come up. But the converse is also true. Like, light work should be there as well. This is where play therapy is so beautiful. It doesn't need to be, when you're doing the healing work, it doesn't have to be in a mountain in Tibet when you're doing a 30-day water fast, or ayahuasca in Peru, or locked in a room. I'm just going to let it all go, and I'm just going to feel everything. It doesn't need to be like that. And I've done all of them, to be honest with you. I mean, I've not been to Tibet, but I've done a lot, because it was I thought I needed more modalities rather than just to sit and feel. So for me, shadow work has to be feelings first.
So what is shadow work for someone who's not familiar with that term?
His simplistic definition was making the unconscious conscious. So the things that we're not aware of, bring it to light. Basically loving all the dark, suppressed and repressed parts of self. The parts of self that we don't want the world to see. The masks that we hide behind. Can we take them off and love all parts of self? So hashtag self-love is a very popular hashtag, but there's not many, but there are a few. There's a lot of people all over the world that really get what that is, and self-love is really just self-acceptance, which is both sides. So if you don't integrate the shadow aspects of self, how can you ever attract a partner that's going to love all parts of you when you don't even love all parts of you? So to me, it's shadow work is feeling safe enough in your inner child to bring into the adult self, to then really start to reintegrating and repatterning. Like right now, me playing soccer again is one of them. I'm really healing the father wound with that. And it's good because I'm doing it for me, and that's a beautiful byproduct. I'm just loving being with the boys again. If
he was here now in Bali, how would you feel if he was on the sidelines? Now you're playing football again when you're 39.
I would enjoy it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I would enjoy it. I scored the winner a couple of weeks ago to get us into the final. And I FaceTimed it after it. But it was a 10-year-old me that hit the penalty. And I loved that. And the next that night, the boys went out to celebrate. don't know, shishi or something. I went home. I had 2 burgers to ground.
Yeah.
I had fries. I had zero guilt. Give me all of it. And I went to sleep because I was doing 2 events the next day. And on my scooter driving to Ubud, it was just this perfect day. Sun was splitting the trees, hardly any traffic. Batu Karu on the left, a goon in the distance. And I just remembered, I was like, oh shit, you scored the winner yesterday. And just tears started coming down, mate. It was a really cathartic release. But the smile was there, and then I had like music. I'm DJing. I love music, it's getting me through. And it's a real gift from my father, actually. If it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't love music as much as I do. But all these soundtracks of growing up, when I was going through hard times, like Tupac, I was rapping in this scooter all the way up to Ubud with tears streaming down, and then singing Oasis, and it was just like, and I'm screaming it, and people can pass me, like, what the hell's that? Like, tonight, you're my rock and roll star. Just loving it in the moment. I'm going, I just felt free. I had no one to impress. But it was nice to be able to FaceTime him after it, just to let him know. Can I have a quick segue and come back? For anyone that knows what the father wound is or has done work in that, watch the movie, early 90s, I think, and it reminds me of watching it with my family, ironically. It's called The Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. And he hears a voice to build a baseball field. And he doesn't have the money, he's a poor farmer. And they're trying to pressure him to sell his land, and he cuts all the corn down, all the wheat, and he builds this baseball, and it's for deceased baseball greats to come back and play, and no one can see them other than his family, and then other people start to. So it's like Oliver Dreams and Vision, right? It's a perfect metaphor that only you can see that. But one of the voice he hears is ease his pain. Before that, it's if you build it, they will come. So he thinks, I'm going to try to say this without ruining the movie. I'd always say to my clients, watch this, and it's not designed by it, but for me, it's beautiful reconciliation of the father wound and integration. So watch the movie and you'll know it makes sense. But there's a part that says ease his pain. Now my father may unconsciously or subconsciously or even consciously be aware that why he's saying certain things. I don't think he is. I think my father's very intelligent. Conscious, not so much. But he is, and that's not a slight on him, but we're all aware of good and bad. And when the dust settles, he would have known that he was too hard on me growing up, and I wouldn't have made him feel good. And I think he's carried a lot of guilt around that for a long while. So I'd actually given it to my client to watch again 2 weeks ago, just before this final, and I decided to watch it. And I had tears streamed down my face as I watched it ease his pain. So when I phoned after it, I wasn't phoning like young Mark looking for his approval, or even young Mark in adult body Mark looking for his approval. I was just sharing my good news. And all the boys in the background are jumping, oh, your son's gets through to the final, and da-da-da-da. And he was sleeping. He just got up out of his bed, and he jumped up, and his face just shifted in front of my eyes. He looked like a young kid, and it looked like absolute relief that now his son is finally doing something for him and not trying to do something for my dad. So that guilt over the years, I felt dissipated. And all these beautiful synchronicities you start to notice along your healing journey, the more self-aware you become. But it's not the priority anymore. I'm not doing this for him. So that's why if my dad was here at the side of the pitch, it'd be good to see him. And if he said anything, I'd just say, fucking shut up. Love you, shut up. Yeah. But I don't think he would, because I'm just not that person anymore.
So it's like you've done all this work to not need his approval anymore, because before you did, which is why it affected you so much, right?
Yeah.
And now you're like, I don't need your approval anymore.
No, I really don't, and it's a very beautiful place to become, because I equated his approval with the peace and love that I said my nervous system was missing. Yeah. When you said, what is emotional peace for you? I was like, can I just be myself without any judgment or repercussions? So now, because I've got more peace within, I'm not delegating my self-worth to someone else and my father or my mother or my mate that's a podcast holder that's more successful than me, that whatever the story is, or a partner, I'm like, do you know what, like, you're enough. It's 3 very powerful words when felt, when you really mean it.
Does that affect your motivation though? Because this is something that I've been wondering, is because a lot of people, they think that's a good thing, right? Like, okay, yeah, my father has a high level of excellence, I have to live up to his expectations, and if I don't, then like I'm not good enough for him. But some people view that as good. They're like, all right, that's good because then I have to live up to these expectations and it gives me the drive and the passion and the hunger to achieve. So without that, do you have that drive still?
No, because it's different. So I'm not a big fan of motivation.
Okay.
Motivation, you need a motive, you need a reason. And if your reasons for doing it is for acceptance and approval of someone else, your reason is all wrong, in my opinion. Inspiration is a cheesy one-liner, but it starts with in. So inspiration is what spontaneously comes up when you're living your truth. Motivation is what you need when you don't really know who you are. And that may ruffle a few feathers, but that's what I believe. Now, don't get me wrong, every now and again I like to slap on if I'm not listening to like a mix I've done or a podcast, sometimes I'll just put on like a generic YouTube, let's go, and days I can't be asked training, like, it's good because I need a reason that day. I was like, inspiration's a little bit low. So it's never one or other for me. It's always like embracing both sides and trying to integrate them as truthfully to who you are. But that has affected me because I'm not motivated to please him anymore. But I'm inspired to see what I'm capable of and more fulfill my soul's purpose.
Do you think that drive is the same though? The same level? Are you that hungry kid that you were before, or has your hunger decreased now?
Again, it's changed lanes. It's like Frosties and cornflakes. So the hunger was there to really feed my dad because I felt I was starved of love. Whereas now I'm filling up my own cup and loving myself more. So to me, I don't want to create moments and pockets of approval and acceptance from my father. I want to help the world heal that part within self to leave your legacy and your soul's blueprint of what your dharmic and karmic path is, why you're here in the first place. Why did you choose your father as a soul before you even turned up? So there's no mistakes. I picked my father very deliberately before I come back in.
Can you elaborate on that? Like, you picked your father.
So how woo-woo do you want me to go here?
Go for it.
So, as you say, teacher and healer. So, my whole life I've had like the ability to tap in, usually in dream states, and I knew there was more. And the 3D reality in which I grew up, I abandoned that very quick because I was already learning that to be accepted, I had to be more like mum or more like dad. I had to be a good boy, as in I'm not causing my mum any trouble, or a good boy that I'm doing well in school or sports. So that pattern and habit just get put into everybody. So I learned that it wasn't really kind of safe to kind of be me. But that was part of my journey of returning as a human, to be honest. Because I spent the majority of my conscious life growing up been very in my head. But my whole life I always knew there was more. I could always feel more. I could see things. I had the same dream about my gran passing away that my mum had, that she never knew until we spoke about it one day. And then my sister freaked out because she had the same dream, but she was 4 years younger. She was only like 6 or 7 at the time. So there's this kind of spooky, like kind of esoteric thing that runs in my family, but I've been scared to voice it because I didn't want to be rejected by my peers. Like, what the fuck's this guy think he is? Like, you know what it's like growing up. So I kept my mouth closed and I pushed that down. And eventually what you suppress must be expressed. Where that comes out in shadow behaviours, where you become aggressive and violent the way I have been. Not consciously, but quite narcissistic in relationships where we hide behind banter because that's what it's like here. And you're just talking to people like a piece of shit. And I did it in parties to other guys. the bullying that I received growing up, I was doing the same. So I had all these masks of self to try and fit in with other people, even though I knew I wasn't being true to who I was. I knew there was more than this physical aspect. So eventually it's got to come out. And depending on how long you've pushed it down, the body is a balance-seeking machine. It's always looking for homeostasis. So we're not giving it a chance, and our thoughts and emotions are a big driver of that. Eventually the body and the mind will start to break down a little bit. So to me, I call it the double ID. It'll be injury, illness, disease, or death. So how quick do you want to wake up to the feedback it's trying to give you that you're not on path? So having had cancer and Lyme's disease and incurable things that I wasn't supposed to get through, eventually I had that piece of going, like, you're really not living your life. You're still trying to be everyone else, and this is what's constituting this, your constitution breaking down, because you're not being true to yourself. So that pain is what got me to really kind of own all parts of myself and go, do you know what, I'm going to speak about whatever I'm inspired to speak about, and if people don't like it, fuck them. Respectfully, fuck them. I'm overdoing it anymore, because I would rather be too much for them than not enough for me. So I've done that my whole life, and I'm not feeling like that anymore. I actually want to help other people that don't feel enough and see that more than an affirmation of, but you are perfect, you are whole, complete, and you always have been and you always will be. It's just your perspective is a little bit off. So going into those types of studies, and then going into like body work was the initial one, and then that led more into like breath work and energy healing, and I just found that I had a natural gift for this, and I just felt really grateful for my teachers. It was as if like one of the inner child's needs is to be seen, but to see who we are, and I felt seen, I felt held, I felt heard, I felt understood, I felt safe to be me, I felt loved. And I went, this is it. And when I get through those moments in life, I'm dedicating the rest of my life to making other people feel the same. So one of the things that I've learned, of course we can't physically prove this, but I suppose we'll need to call it a theory for the science people out there, is that once you pass over, anything that you don't fulfill in this life, you'll come back to fulfill in another life. Again, law of thermodynamics. So the physical body you'll lose, the soul lives on. And you have angels and guides and maybe even like deceased relatives that fit into those characters, or maybe just beyond. But you've got a soul family, a hierarchy of ascended souls and masters that are there to help you find your path. So they will help you pick who is best to bring you back into physical existence to then go on and fulfill what you're here to do. So there's so much more I can say about that stuff, but I don't want to fry people too much. But basically, in some level, I chose my mother and father before I turned up here, knowing exactly that every thought, action and feeling that my mum had consciously and subconsciously was a great match for every thought, action and feeling that my father had consciously and subconsciously. And at that moment of conception, when my genetic code was passed on, that was everything I needed and more, because obviously studies like epigenetics and neuroplasticity, we're not slave to the genes anymore, but it does form a big part. And then in our early environmental experiences, when we're just this hypnagogic sponge of, and we can't communicate, we're just taking everything, all this sensory awareness, it's just really heightened. And then that's the unlearning, which is really just a remembering of self. I feel that's what life's journey is to just take all the layers off and return back to that beautiful little soul that just before they come in.
That's fascinating. So one question popped up as you're saying that is, so I ask questions for the listener also. So why do you believe that? What makes you believe that?
Because my body felt it.
Okay.
I felt peace. I felt like right now, when you have like a little croaky throat moment, or the eyes well up. The stuff that we get shamed for, we've spoke about as men, especially, like, I don't want to go back to UK, but it's what we know. But any kind of Western society, when you just have that moment of a little tear, not of sadness, not of missingness, just of truth, and you go, wow. Because it's never your job to convince anyone else. And I will provide the perfect paradox for people that don't believe this stuff to go, well, I don't believe that. And it helps them on their path of what their soul's here to do. My job's never to convince anyone of anything. My job is just to love myself enough to speak my truth. And can I embody that inquisitive, childlike wonder and awe of this thing that we call life, to continually be humble enough to learn, but courageous enough to teach what you know as well, and just the right ear and the right word in the right ear at the right moment can change everything. But if you never have the courage to speak, you're never going to fulfill what you're here to do.
Yeah, so that whole suppressing yourself thing, like there's a book, where is it? It's over there. The Body Keeps the Score, right? That's what you referred to, right? Yeah. And that is a very fascinating concept to me, of like, if you don't express what you're feeling, like if something, for example, if something bothers you, you don't express it, how that shows up in like your body. So you had Lyme disease and cancer.
Yeah.
And do you think that is literally down to the fact that you weren't expressing yourself?
I think it's a big part of it. I think I love that you're aware of that book. It's amazing. So the cancer I had was, again, no coincidence. It was a rare skin cancer called a DFSP, and it was right on my solar plexus. So for the kind of 1-2 woo-woo crew that's watching, you'll know what the solar plexus is all about. It's all about how we move through the physical world. It's like action and the ego, the seat of the ego, really. It's like we're close to being in here, but we're not quite. We're still that desperate bid for control and how we like to be seen and how we move through. So anything that's hyper or hypo will take us out of balance. So I was very action orientated, I think, as a lot of men. Everything was about how much I got done and busy, how busy I was and how productive I was, and like I had 5 balls in the air, but let me throw another 2 or 3 in there because it's coming from this not enoughness. So that's exactly what it was, and it's a skin cancer, and it was deep. So I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I don't know that, kind of get it, sounds cool, but like, I really believe it. I believe it. And how could I be when I'd spent my whole life trying to be everyone else? So even when I got the news that I had cancer, so it was a biopsy, and then I went and they told me, I just went, oh fuck. I wasn't scared. I kind of expected it, if I'm honest. Because I manufactured an argument with my wife at the time so that she would come. Because I didn't want her to be there when he said that. I just knew. And then I phoned her, because she told me to phone me when you come out. And I just felt numb. Because my first thoughts were, how do I tell my mum, that her firstborn, only son, the other side of the world, because I was living in Australia at the time, how do I tell her that I've got cancer? And how do I tell my wife, who I've only been married to for 6 months? So I had this core wound, which is another thing we're born with, we turn up with, based in our past lives. Mine was guilt. So I felt guilty that I was doing this to them, and to important women in my life. So the paradox and the humour we can have around that was, and I caught it very quickly, about 6 weeks in, I just burst out laughing. I was sitting myself at the beach, I went, fuck, I can't even have fucking cancer for myself. I'm making that about everybody else. Holy shit, man. And that was the kind of path of really hearing it. People say, like, what did you do? Well, I'd be quicker telling you what I didn't do. I did everything. I didn't fake it till I make it, but I did really go deeper into my studies with Dr. Joe and really get into that.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, big Joey D, my man. He's a legend. I love him, man. I love him. So good to me. Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying now? Dr. Joe. Yeah, so getting clear on the dream future of what I actually wanted, and can I give up the person that I am in this state of now, which is based in past nows that have came to us. Can I let go of what he says is the three things if you want to change it, which is your environment, your body and time? Can you get beyond those three and become nobody, nowhere and no time and no thing? And mine, I think you can break the environment down into people, places and things, like possessions. Like people get very attached to primary caregivers or their kids or partners or even Instagram influencers or whoever else. You get very attached to, I need to do that for them. You get attached to the place. A lot of people where I come from complain about it, but they never leave it. And possessions, like we've got to get the house with the picket fence and the new car and go on the holidays and have a holiday home or have X amount of crypto or whatever it may be. We get attached to these 3D things that keep us stuck in this persona who we think we have to be. And it's not until you have a void of health that you put a higher value on it. And I realised that all I want is to be healthy and well. And what does that look like? So I started really embodying that visualisation and feeling it. And I get out my meditations feeling like someone else. And then the cool thing was I could embody that throughout the day. So when someone was cutting me off in traffic, I wasn't going back to the angry Scotsman. Fucking idiot, what you doing? I was like, there you go, mate. I was like, what would love do? What would your future self do? What would your higher self do? How would you call that? Does it matter? No. It's like maybe his wife's in labour, maybe his kids fell at school. Like, you don't know. Just cool, let him go. So I started to have all these little subtle moments where I just wasn't behaving like the old me. I was starting to get into that. But then the following, so I healed within 12 weeks. They couldn't find any.
Wow.
After I refused the surgery. They wanted to remove my fascia. His exact words were, I don't care what the MRI says. I'm removing the fascia. I'm probably going to have to cut away some of the rectus abdominis muscle, and I see your lymph nodes have popped up, so it's probably your lymphatic system, so I'll take that out. All whilst looking down and not even looking at me or my wife. So I stood up and shook his hand. And then he looked at me because his ego was getting, he went, I went, thank you. And he went, I haven't done anything yet. And I went, nor will you. And I'm confused. I said, I think you are, brother. I says, let me give you a crash course in Scottish men. I said, I'll fucking decide what you're doing with my body. I said, your exact words were, you don't care what the MRI says. You're going to do this, this and this. I said, you don't even have the courtesy to ask me what I do for a living, or my wife. I said, she was like an amazing body worker, and it was called Bowen. I need to try and announce that because people think I'm saying Bowen. Bowen, B-O-W-E-N, a Bowen therapist, which is all about the connective tissue and the fascia, whereas a lot of our trauma gets actually stored in the connective tissue. The issues are in the tissues. We get them back here, but they're in there. So that's where a lot of people, when you get a really good massage, even never mind like body work, you'll feel emotional because it's a way of eliminating out your biggest organ, the skin. And the Bowen therapists see that the fascia is the gateway to the soul. So I said, you've not even asked her, you've not even looked at her. I was more annoyed that he never comforted her as a woman. Just made her, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? Nothing, flicking the pen. And I said, yeah, you won't be fucking touching me, man. I said, your words are you don't care. I said, fuck off. And he said, I'll see you in a few months when the juicing doesn't work. I never mentioned juicing.
So he said that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, all right, fuck you. So I got into the car and I was shaking. I was shitting myself because I knew that was a pivotal moment in my life that I would never forget. But the voice that I had suppressed my whole life was roaring at me this time. Don't do this. And I don't have a problem with the traditional system, medical system, not at all. I just think if we had, it's the holy trinity of wellness. I think if we were more conscious of our daily self-care habits, and when life gets in the way and you're a little bit, whether it's like the aircon and you can take some jamu or then you would go into natural therapies or alternative therapies as they're called in society. But as I used to say when I was on stage in Australia doing workshops, I was like, listen, if you're not grateful for the people that have dedicated 7 years of their life to with the doctors and the nurses and the extra study and the amount of operations that they've done, I was living in Perth, Western Australia, and the drivers are airing their fucking cuckoo, mate. They're dangerous, man. And I said, if, God forbid, touch hairy wood, something doesn't happen. I said, but someone smashes into your car and you go out the windscreen and your spleen and your kidneys splattered over the freeway, I went, you're going to light some fucking frankincense and sage and meditate that back in your body, or you're going to be fucking grateful that somebody's going to be able to perform some life-saving operation. I said, so it's not one way. I said, but I just think if we go that way, and if you're more in your truth, accidents tend to happen less. But so many of us don't even get the first two right, that we're so dependent on the third. That's my issue. That's more a human issue than the system. Of course, the system contributes by pushing fear on them. They think that's the way they have to go. That's for a separate podcast, I would say. So, yeah, I just got into the car and she said, if they hadn't already done the biopsy, I would say, I get it, love, but is it not better just to get it all out? And I said, Sam, my whole life I've not listened to myself. It's screaming, don't do this. And for as much as me and my wife were two lost souls coming into each other's life for a very deliberate purpose, there was a beautiful, tender moment then when she said, okay, I've got you. I trust you. And I burst into tears. I was like, I need to do this. And then 12 weeks, building up to the 12 weeks, she said, you're behaving like nothing fucking happened. You're driving me insane. I need to go and get this checked. And then, of course, the doubt comes in. Like, oh, shit, have I done enough to do it? But I was just living in the now, mate. I wasn't living as someone that had cancer. I wasn't faking it to make it. I was in flow. And then, of course, we went up and did the test and I couldn't find it. And then I was just collapsed in a heap. The two of us just like that. And phone. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was make the phone call to my mum and dad. And it wasn't so much the cancer, it was on PS, I'm not listening to anything they're telling me. I'm going to do my own way. And to touch on my dad, to bring it back round to show both sides, my mum freaked out because she just thinks safety, like, just, was it mean chemo or radiotherapy, right, like, or do you need to have surgery? Yeah. And I said, I'm not, I've refused it. What the fuck are you talking about? She just freaking out. And I said, Mum, just breathe for me. And my dad, who is selective listening, mate, selective, that's him mostly, but with something serious, he's there. He's always there. He's never not. God bless him. And she obviously had me in speaker. And he said, Mark, can you hear me? I said, yeah. And I said, can I just save everyone some tears and tantrums here for a minute? He said, your mind's made up, isn't it? And I said, aye, Dad, it is. And I said, well, that's just how it is. He said, there's no point getting wound up, Anne, because he's his own man and he's going to do what's best for him. He said, so you give it everything. I'm going to get emotional here, man. And he said, this is his catchphrase for everything. It was even back to playing football as well. He said, whatever it takes. It's his 3 words for everything. Whatever it takes. And I said, I will. And he said, but just promise me this. He said, if after a few weeks or months, he said, there's no sign of improvement with your way of doing things, please just go and get that done. And I never... These are wee moments of grace, mate, where I didn't want the guilt of lying to him, so I never lied. And I could see it all unfolding in the moment. And I said, I appreciate what you're saying, Dad. I said, but I'll never need to do that. I said, I don't know when, I don't know how. I said, but in the not too distant future, I'll be able to phone you and tell you it's worked. So 3 months later, when I could phone them, it was as if I could feel them. And I just saw the emotion come out and I was like, fuck. But it took me years, mate, to really be real with myself, that I was like, fuck, I had cancer. It was as if I kind of just put it to the back of my mind a little bit. So I hadn't fully dealt with it, but I think it was a massive confidence boost, which has been missing the whole of my life. Confident and certain to be yourself. So I was like, holy fuck, my body can do this. Yeah, I had an amazing community of healers and people beside me, and some of them are just like brothers and sisters for life. But it was the same with meditation. When I had my first proper Kundalini experience, it was through meditation. It's not been through anything external, and it was these little moments that stick with me going, you've got it all. Like, everything you need is within. You just need to get out your own way. But after so I was vlogging this journey, and I was just sharing my truth. Never once did I say, hey, I have the truth for cancer, or blah, blah, blah. That'd be grossly irresponsible at best. But where I come from, because I've been a bit of a rascal in certain people's eyes and in mine, growing up, and it's a small town, people don't forget. You're not supposed to do a 180 with your life. And next thing, I was getting fake Facebook pages made up about me. They were trying to add my clients, saying I was a charlatan, I was a sociopath, I was dangerous, I was going to kill people, putting my name in my face like, on Jesus' body, and making all these memes and shit up, like trying to add my mum and dad. And that angry me came out again. I really wanted to go home, and I had a short list of who I thought it could have been. Of course, they never said who it was all hidden. And I wanted to be violent. I was very, very fucking angry. I took it for a bit, but when they started taking things off my wife and my mum and dad's page, I was like, no, you're not on. But then the streetwise part came back, and I'm going, they're doing anything they can to get a rise out of you. So when going directly to me, I'm like, yeah, cool, whatever. They go, we'll go after the people that's nearest to him. That was like a weakness. And then they started to get the reaction. And one of my mentors at the time, I phoned him and I said, I'm fucking raging, they're taking things off my wife's page. And he laughed. He's an Irish guy, Mitch, shout out Mitch Behan. And I said, Mitch, I'm seething, man. I says, don't fucking laugh at me. He said, I'm not laughing at you. I'll leave that to you to laugh at you when you calm down and you see this. He said, because you know all the teachings. He says, now you have a beautiful opportunity to integrate and embody them. He said, because I've told you for as long as I've met you, you're a leader. But you will never lead for as long as you be a herder, like a shepherd. He said, because it's as if there's an unworthy part of you that every time you step up, you've got to throw the crook round and try and drag people with you. He said, but they're not at the level of consciousness that you've had to go through the real pain to get to that point. He says, so there's a part of you that doesn't want to leave anyone behind, noble. There's also a wounded part of you that doesn't feel safe enough to go it alone. But leaders aren't herders. Leaders just lead. And as a result, people follow. People that want followers are never leaders. He says, so for as long as you get off on people telling you how wonderful you are, you're never going to be able to handle the opposite. He said, but you know that within this campaign that's happening just now, I guarantee, because it's a law of the universe, you can't have one without the other. He said that there's people jumping to your defence in the comment section talking about how good you are. I said, I've not read it, to be honest. I've just seen certain bits, and my DMs are lighting up with people saying, hey, have you seen this? And he said, well, even the DMs that are lighting up, why are they doing that? Because they're trying to have your back. So there's both sides, but you're just fixating on that because you can't handle it. And then I had that moment of grace again. I went, shit. It's straight back to the praise from my father, and I can't handle the criticism. And he said, and another thing, he said, people with a global vision will never get there by living a local existence. He says, you're making waves here in Australia and in Europe and the UK at the same time. He says, my boy, you're levelling up. He says, but you can't see that. So I went in, started doing a couple of processes and things in myself, and I went deeper in, and I found there was a link to my father. Healed that, the pages stopped. So many people reported, but just I wasn't giving it energy anymore. So it changed, it went away. But deep down, there was always a part of me that was enough doubt for me to go, did I heal that? So within the next year, I manifest Lyme's disease. And I'm just sitting there going, you're going to keep doing this for the rest of your life. There's literally something eating away at you from the inside out. And I just made a decision that I wasn't moving until I found out what that was. What was the real root cause? Now I had been doing a lot of deep work, and I found so it was a mixture of core wounds that I came into this life with, and deep parts of the mother and father wound would overlap and cause what's called your DDT. So imagine like Triple H or something getting in there and just boom, blasting you into the ground. That's what your DDT is like. It's like you're strangled in here and you're living from the neck up. Everything has to make sense because you don't feel safe in the body. And the DDT stands for your deepest dominant thought, and it's buried in the seat of the subconscious. And it's always linked to, there's another book we were speaking about earlier, Letting Go, Dr. David Hawkins.
Yep.
Beautiful. So the map of consciousness.
Right.
So, if I'm not mistaken, his is shame at the bottom, 20 hertz. Dr. Joe had lust there or thereabouts. I actually think lust is below shame now, especially with how hyper-sexual the world is just now. Below that again, I believe, is unworthiness. I think the deep unworthiness of love, which we learn and equate to mum or dad either being physically or emotionally absent, and we don't know why, because this could have had a moment when you were 3 weeks old. You're not going to be able to consciously recollect that. This is why we can't think our trauma away. We've got to feel it through the body. And we can't even access it through thoughts through the 3 layers of the 3 different brains as well, because you're not going to get, your thoughts are going to keep you in the prefrontal neocortex. It's not going to get into the emotional brain, the limbic system at the back. So I sat with that and I realised that my deepest dominant thought was, nothing I do is ever good enough of love. And if I don't perform, I am not worthy of love. And I just had this moment where I fell off my chair, and I just knew that I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to healing that for self continually as it goes up and down the layers of consciousness, and helping other people with that, and having a system that helps to do it. Because that, to me, and I used to say this, I used to have lots of one-liners, Aaron, to sound clever. It was a way of massaging the father wound. So I never felt as clever as my father, because he was a principal, and I used to introduce him, he's the smartest guy I've ever met. So he's number 1. I'm at best number 2. So I spent my whole life looking up. So as soon as you position someone there, you've got to position yourself equal and opposite. And eventually, and this is what breaks down in relationships, eventually they'll leave skid marks in the toilet seat or toothpaste in the sink, or not respond to a text late at night, or they only put 1 kiss instead of 3, and we start running anything, and you see they're a fully functioning human. But this fantasy that you've had where there's only one-sidedness, when they start to show the other side, we can't handle it. So eventually, if we've put them up, we've got to pick faults at them to bring them back down, to then kind of level it out. So we either see, oh my God, they're just amazing, that we're too humble to admit that what we see in them and we admire in them is also in us. Because if it wasn't in you, how could you label it? You wouldn't know what it is.
True.
And the opposite, when we're, he's a fucking dickhead, I would never do that. You get so self-righteous and cocky and proud when you can't own that trait that's triggering you is actually an unloved part of self as well. So both are just other parts of love. And when I saw that, I realised this is what I'm here to do. And God bless my dad. Let God love him. Everything that I had looked for him to give me my whole life, it made me go and find it within myself and my mum. And I did have treatments from a dear friend of mine, Zoran. He's a Slovenian guy. He did bioresonance therapy, and 3 treatments. The frequency, because everything Dr. Joe says, all disease is a lowering of frequency. So basically, if you're living in guilt or shame or fear or apathy or hopelessness or whatever it may be, unworthiness is the big one for me personally. You're living in survival. There's no room to create anything more. So you can do all the affirmations and manifestations and have Wachuma and Kambo and all these things till the cows come home, but that's just physical modalities that are still stuck in the 3D, because we can see, smell, hear, taste or touch them. But there's a whole other infinite quantum world beyond that. And when I had that realisation, I was like, wow, this is it. This is what I'm here to do. And I think, to go all the way around now, I think that's when you had said, if you had 30 minutes to talk about something, what would it be? And it was like, how your deepest pain is your soul's purpose and pathway to fun, freedom and fulfilment. Because when you heal anger or guilt or shame, and listen, there's complex trauma. I'm talking mostly about developmental trauma. I've had other things where I've had people try and stab me, and hundreds of other things that's went on there. Yeah. But mostly I'm talking about the inner child trauma. But people have had complex trauma, and I don't mean to bypass this. It's a very complex subject, but there is a system to heal it, which is what I'm dedicated to. So people that have been racially abused or physically beaten or sexually raped or assaulted or whatever it may be, again, it's never about forgiving them, but you owe it to yourself for that peace within to shift the perspective that maybe there's another side that we aren't seeing. And when we have that little moment of grace, we realise that nothing's missing. And from a 3D self, when we can see what that pain's actually been given us at the same time and to the same degree, then you'll want to do one or two things spontaneously when you heal that. Is that you realise that pain, you wouldn't wish that in your worst enemy. And you either want to spend the rest of your life making sure that other people don't go through the pain that you did. But here's where real higher consciousness comes in. When you realise what the pain's given you as well, you wouldn't want to rob people of that pain either.
Interesting.
So you get to sit with them because they know, and this is where a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a healer, a guide from the side comes in. It's not to take the pain away, because as parents, that's how we're wired, right? We want to take the pain away. You take the pain away, you take away the potential, you take away the resilience, the determination, the discipline, the commitment, the consistency, that unraveling of self to really find out who the fuck we are behind all the shit. So it's human nature that we go, kid falls down, pick it up. A mother, being socially obvious here, a mother will typically go, oh, you darling, you okay? A dad will go, because the kid will look at you for verification, hey, how bad is this? Should I be screaming the place down? And if it's just like a small fall, dad will go, oh, how tough are you? And then the bottom lip goes away, we stand up. Because they're always looking at us for certain things. So when you don't, I think it's a very powerful metaphor, like, don't want to be picking them up all the time, because you want to see them that life will knock you down, you will have tests, but can you have the bit between your teeth to stand up and do whatever it takes and co-regulate as well and heal together? That's what it's all about. So for me, the pain that I went through, of course I wouldn't wish it on anyone else, and if I can help people live a less reactive life, they maybe won't need to go through things that I went through. However, who am I to play God though? So if that is part of their soul's journey and lessons, at least I'm here to show them, hey, here's some knowledge about it, but here's some experience as well. And we can merge both the mind and the body, because people don't really trust your qualifications. They want to know your experience beside things. Like when we connected, you never asked me for my CV. We connected through story and similar points. So when someone's going through that, when you realise the gift that's within, the blessing within the lesson, you don't want to take it away from them. You want to walk with them and show them, hey, you're not alone. Like, I can give you real compassion and empathy because I've had direct experience of this and I know how dark it is. And yes, I can give you tools and things to help alleviate some of that darkness, but sometimes you just need to sit in it. And there's like systems and methods to letting it go as well. Like in the book, he kind of talks about it, but also doesn't. A lot of people read, it's a great book. But then we still don't really know how to let it go. Sometimes it's not about letting it go. It's about letting it flow. It's about feeling all of it. You're angry, be fucking angry. If you feel guilty, be guilty. If you feel ashamed, be the most shameful person the world's ever been. Allow it to pass through the body though, and to come and go. So the deepest pain, to me, is your soul's purpose. From a collective point of view, I think we're all here for the same thing, which is just to return to love. Subjectively, that will look based on your core wounds, based on your developmental trauma or any complex trauma that's in there, healing that, and your value system, not morals and ethics, just what is purely valuable to you. What do you love to do? Like play. I will say, when play becomes your purpose, performance becomes your product. Simply put, when you do more of the things you love, you just love what you do and you're in flow. Like Gary Vee, you with the podcast, you don't need reminded to do this. You're inspired from within because you love it. Right. You're good at it. You're phenomenal at it.
Thanks.
And even just now, I'm aware, like, man, I was talking, going, have you took a breath? You're speaking too much. Like that, like shut down. And it's a skill, mate, because not many hosts can actually make it about the guest. They can make it about them.
Right.
So you've got that natural ability to communicate, to say the right word when to, but listen and give that out. And it's wonderful, man, and that's a value of yours, like connection and contribution and education and showing people what's possible. So we don't need reminded to live in our values. But what I would say is your biggest values come from your biggest voids, what you perceive you didn't have growing up. And that's when the trauma comes up. But when we can then, so there's like 6 P's to reparenting ourselves as adult kids. First thing's peace. If you don't get the nervous system on board, you ain't doing anything, right? So you need to kind of regulate the nervous system. That's the first thing. Second thing is we need to shift the perspective. So once the bridge in between here is actually doing like feelings first shadow work. So when we release emotions of the body, because I can tell you a story here and I may know that there's abandonment in there, but imagine like a layer, like an onion. If we go straight to the root of the onion, but we don't know that there's layers of guilt and shame and real deep fear, anxiety or depression and other things that's on top of that, like we can jar the system too much than needs to be. So it's always about asking the body, and there's like certain techniques and things I use for that. The body will tell you, oh shit, we thought it was that from an intellectual point of view, but the body's saying it's actually this. Then we can peel it off, take some of the layers off, and then it feels safer to come up. Then that's when we shift the perspective. The mind, I do a thing called the conscious collapse process. It's not, as it says, it's conscious. We're not meditating or under hypnosis or anything like that. We're perturbating the cells of the body to be squeezed enough, and you see people, inner kid coming out stamping their feet going, I can't fucking see anymore. Keep looking, and there's a moment as I ask these specific questions, and we've already prepped the body to feel safe enough to go there, that there's just this moment of grace where we see it, and it's as if someone gives you glasses and you see the whole landscape for the first time in your life. After that then comes play, and I feel as if that's where I am again just now, because it's giving your adult self permission and having the courage to go back and do the thing that you love. As a kid. So I'm just going to explore football again. And to give my dad a break, like there's different play styles. So my play style is the competitor. That's how I would, so I can't really give my dad shit. It was already in me, but he obviously thought I could handle more than what he was giving me, and it obviously came from his wounded place of not being enough within himself. So I'm the competitor, and I've just seen that the past couple of weeks. I'm like, I don't need my dad here for me to want to win, but it's coming from a more playful, less pressured place. But just to go back and explore that heals old wounds, and then it's like everything that you face, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. Before you know it, I don't drink, but I've had a couple of bin tanks here and there with the boys, and do you know what? It tasted like nectar. I was like, beautiful. It's just, it's deeper than that. The next P is purpose. And there's a process that I take them through to find what's called your core calling in life. It's like a 3 or 4, mine is like 4 page, but a very small font of who I am and why I'm here. And it's not just made up or thinking about it. There's a system to get there based on the wounds and things that we've healed. And there's usually, as I said, there's a moment of grace where people go, oh my God, that is why I'm alive. And then the brain and the egoic mind doing its job will go, wow, that's a very grandiose purpose there. That's too big for you. You're never going to be able to do that. All the stories will come back up, it's not that we haven't healed them, but just the ego's job is to edge God out. Also stands for everybody's got one. So for people that think it's like, oh, you're being ego, you're like, what part of you recognises that? Yeah, we've all got it. It's not a bad thing. It's to try and keep you safe. It's the most primal thing of the brain. It's just like, oh, that looks like an unknown, therefore I can't categorise it as good or bad, safe or unsafe. I'll just not take a chance. I'll just say that's bad. No, we're not doing that. But then this is where consciousness is above thought. We can just be the observer and go, listen, I know why you're doing it. We're safe because we've all, and the nervous system is an ongoing practice. We do a lot of them every day, like cold water immersions, exercise, meditation, breath, sunlight, laughter, connection.
Yeah.
These are all ways to create more safety in the body. So you keep that going, and then we have the plan. So we chunk the purpose down, and again there's a system to doing that. And then the last piece is power, is stepping into real higher self-care habits that's going to elevate your consciousness but also keep you grounded, so it's not body, mind or esoteric things, but actually tangible things to do every day, and just really step into the truth of who you are, because we can't, as I know firsthand, that we can't do anything without our health. And when we've done all that work, we naturally love ourselves more, so we take more loving care of our body and mind, but we still need to be kept accountable. And part of stepping in your power isn't just habits, it's like staying on purpose, doing the things that you said you were going to do. So that's the kind of framework behind it all.
That's really powerful for people to know about. Like that concept of DDT is very interesting to me, because that's like a big part of life, you know, that it's just unconscious. Like I never knew about that. Like, oh, I actually have a thought that I regularly go back to. It's like I'm reminded of Tony Robbins. He says everyone has an emotional home. It's like they have a dominant emotion that they feel every day. But if you're not aware of it, then you can never fix it. Not fix it. I use the wrong word. But like, you know, overcome it. You know?
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Like again, on this path as well, we can get so protective of our words to try and get it right. And yeah, we know conceptually that we're not broken, so why do we need to fix it? But we also know that emotionally, I don't feel good. So there is something that's broken, so we're not, but we are. It's not so much broken, it's more misaligned, I think, is the way to go. So, yeah, like, did you brush your teeth today?
Yeah.
Did you Google how to do that?
No.
Just done it so many times, you don't think about it, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a thought in there that we're not even aware that we're thinking, what does that lead to? The thought releases a chemical, goes down through the body, we feel something, because that thought will make us make certain decisions to act out. So that feeling that Tony's talking about, the thought's the root, in my opinion. A lot of people do the chicken or the egg, what comes first. I think the way of healing it is feelings first, to then have more safety in the body and then return to it, because there's like 10 times more traffic going this way than there is that way. And for the last 15 years we've been told mental health, but if you think about it, we only really give a shit about mental health because we know our thoughts make us feel a certain way. So it's emotional health for me, first and foremost. It's the only thing that makes us different as humans, is our ability to feel. And we're all bipolar by nature, because you can't feel happy and sad at the same time. Not as a three-dimensional human. So we're always categorising things. As soon as we position something here, there's a juxtaposition of something else over here. And the work is, as a human, because that's how we make sense of our environment, through our emotions. So the work is actually to become aware when we make absolute statements that we're denying that there's an equal and opposite side. And can we see that, and then we see what it's given us, and from a soul level, that we get beyond the duality. It goes back to oneness, back to truth, back to like divine love, but there are no conditions.
So what are some practical ways someone can find out what their deepest dominant thought is?
A practical way to get on the phone with me, I'll figure it out within 15 minutes, to be honest with you. But what I would say is, and this is my as I said, have the courage to teach what you know, but have the humility to learn, and have the humility to know that you're always learning. So one of the first things I used to do was the conscious collapse, because I thought it was so powerful. This is before I really understood trauma and how much the body holds on to. So if I'm trying to push people to this deepest dominant thought, that process was quite traumatic. Cue my core wound of guilt. I was like, oh shit, I've messed up some of my clients. No, we got there, but it was just maybe the depths that they had to go, and the pain was unnecessary. Also, not, or it would have happened the other way, but going forward, how can I tweak it? So I'd be happy to help you understand what the deepest dominant thought is, but there's a process to get there. I would say the best thing to do, I can't remember the exact date. If you go into my Instagram, Trusted Soul, TrystedSoul, in my bio in the link tree, there's a program called Awaken Your Worth. And one of the things we do is we find out what the deepest dominant thought is, but we do it from nurturing those points safely to get there first. Because if not, the body and mind are just going to keep being in opposition. It's just another thought for you to think, where you're maybe trying to skip steps.
Trying to master the real thought.
Yeah.
Right, I see. Wow, so that is, man, it's such a fascinating concept, like thoughts, because it goes thoughts, feelings, actions, results, right? So, like you said, everything starts with our thoughts.
Yeah.
But we can think ourselves into a great life or a shit life just from our thoughts, like negative self-talk. So, is that also like how you change your negative self-talk is by getting awareness over your deepest dominant thought first, and then you can work to change your self-talk? How do you do that?
It's a good question, man. To me, the first step is always awareness. So I can't say this without a Dr. Joe voice. Like, change your life, you got to change your energy. So if you want to change your energy, we need to charge it up more. To me, you want the AAA batteries. So it's awareness, acceptance, aligned action. That's how we change your energy. So the first thing is you need to be aware that you've been unaware. And you also need to not give yourself shit. So if you catch a negative thought, like once upon a time you weren't aware that was a negative thought, you just already acted out a certain way. So I think that's the first thing, just to sit with that and then maybe ponder, because this is deep work that I do. I mean, I've paid half our Rwanda's deficit in personal development and healing over the years, and I will continue to, because I love this. I always want to be of more, not from a place of not enoughness, but just continue to grow, expand and evolve, which is, I think, is what a soul's here to do. So yeah, just be aware of that and going, right, well, why am I, what's potentially behind this? Can I give myself, can I see that the positive of that negative is that I've caught it? Right, where do these things come from? And then start just that inquisitive journey of going in there, because this may be a little too deep, too soon for some people. But that's also not true. When you're ready, you're ready. You know. And that's what Awaken Your Worth is. It's a 6-week live coaching program where with the 6 P's of reparenting we touch upon, and there's deeper aspects to go into them. There's a live coaching, healing, teaching session, live Q&A. I don't hang up until everyone's question's answered, and then there's one mission between the following week's call. And it's pretty profound. People have had a lot of breakthroughs for that, and I think one of the things that comes back time and time again for people is that awareness of that, wow, I never even knew that's what that thought was. But to just start the inquisitive journey of looking under the hood of what could potentially cause that, I think is what gets you hungry to want to know more and realise that you don't know what you don't know. Because if you're trying to tell me, and I've had people that have heard things like this, and podcasts I've done with other people, or maybe even an Instagram post or something I put up, they'll go, yeah, I know what my deepest dominant thought is. I was like, no, you don't. And I know that sounds cocky. I was like, but you don't, because you've just heard a concept from me for the first time, and you've attached that to something that you've previously thought. So getting to that point of thinking you know what the deepest dominant thought is based on a past that's familiar to you. So you've not thought anything different. All you've done is took what I've said and made an association that makes you feel familiar. So you can't think it. You're not going to get there because it's so trapped within the layers. There's certain questions that I'll ask you that you don't know that what I'm going to ask. So straight away there's an unknown. So you've got to be present. Rather than you going into the archives, that's just someone that has inner child trauma typically of being abandoned. So they try and seek control. Which is all of us, right?
Yeah. But what's interesting about that whole abandonment stuff is, what if you've never been abandoned but you have fear of abandonment? How does that work?
Because in some level you would have abandoned yourself. And it may not be the direct cause of abandonment. You may have abandoned, like every relationship we've ever had will do one or two things. You will abandon your values to take on the values of your partner. Happy wife, happy life, all these kind of catchphrases and things. And it doesn't work because all you're doing is breeding resentment, because your inner child is going, you're overlooking me again. When you make two of them, you make none of you. So you're abandoning yourself, really. But most people would rather be with somebody than nobody, even if that somebody's not right for them. So the abandonment may come from feeling rejected. I mean, they're all kind of intrinsically linked. So there's like rejection, neglect, abandonment, betrayal or trust, injustice, and guilt. They're the kind of big ones is the inner child wounds. But abandonment, neglect, and rejection are very closely knit. So you may have feel rejected from a parent just as you wanted the toy but they gave it to your sibling instead, and you go, or no, I'm not taking you there anymore, you've been a bad boy. So you feel rejected and then they go to get it. So then there's a fear of abandonment that's actually linked to the rejection. Does that make sense? Yeah. But it's always where we abandon ourselves. So in relationships, that will play out because that's a really teaching dynamic of relationships. What we observe through mum and dad and what we observe and experience within ourselves, we take on. That's a blueprint. And we'll abandon our values because maybe you saw, again, I'm using a very obvious stereotype, but you'll see your mother typically abandon hers to try and keep the peace of the family. So then you take on the role of people pleaser. So you abandon who you really are to try and fit in with everyone else. Or maybe you've got this insatiable need for perfection because you feel that I'm not good enough as I am, and if I'm not good enough just now, then that means I could be rejected. My father would reject me, and then I fear that he might never come back. I'm abandoned. So it's multifaceted. It's deep, and there's patterns, and there's definitely a system and a framework to heal it. But you need to make people feel that they're enough, and you need to make them feel as an individual first and foremost. So just listening is so powerful. But yeah, you either abandon your values, take on theirs, or you'll expect them to abandon theirs to take on yours. So either way, there's going to be resentment and guilt. So you either feel guilty that you know that they are not being true to themselves and you're trying to force your shit onto them, or you will feel resentment, and then you hear it, you go, so fucking ungrateful. I did this, and this for you. And it just becomes this point scoring thing. Again, probably something that you've witnessed growing up. So, yeah, there's abandonment's always in there.
Do you think everyone has that? Because I have that wound, if you call it that.
Yeah, but remember, the law of polarity says there's two sides. So and this is an important thing for the listeners here, that you're much more than your wounds. In fact, you're not your wounds.
Right.
You're what you perceive your wounds to be. But within those wounds are the wisdom. So you've had generational wisdom given to you, you've had generational wounds given to you. They're both two sides of the same coin, which is divine love. I mean, you can come back to that within self and get beyond like, I see this, I can touch it, therefore it is, and just open yourself up to the divinity of who you are beyond all that, then this experience can be a lot more playful, a lot more light, a lot more fluent, and a lot more fun, because you're free to be you. And then that's where the fulfilment comes in, because you're doing what you love, rather than the fear of doing what you love to then be reprimanded or rejected or abandoned or neglected.
And then doing what you love is easy because you're doing it from a place of inspiration rather than fear.
Boom.
Right?
Yep. But fear is so beautiful. When can you ever be courageous without it?
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
But what's the fear if it's coming from inspiration? Then where is...
Inspiration will be birthed out of fear. Inspiration will be birthed out of the realisation that there's more than the fear that you perceive. Inspiration is more truth. Inspiration is that I realise that fear is there, and I am inspired to be courageous to move through that fear and go back to the truth of who I am beyond it. Because that fear, we're only born with 3. Loud noises, being dropped, and abandonment. Because we're so dependent on everything. We're just this fleshy matter. We get our poo and our pee wiped up for us, we get fed, we get birthed, we get sleep. We're like, oh, you're so cute. Like, we have to do nothing, and we're celebrated. Where does it then shift where we think, I'm only celebrated if I do something?
Well, it goes back to what you said earlier about relationships are conditional love. So when we maybe, I don't know, this is my theory on it, it's when we gain that consciousness of like speaking and listening and talking, and yeah, like when we gain that consciousness as a child, then we realize, oh shit, I won't get love if I don't do this a certain way.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. What do you think?
Yeah, and the work is remembering who we were before that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's never about forgetting who you are. I think it's more a remembering of who you've always been. Because you've came from this and all these things get added on top of it, so it's kind of just taking it away. But especially as men, we think, oh, I need to read all these books, I need to go on all these courses, and it becomes shelf-help rather than self-help. We just go, because it's coming from a place of not enoughness. When, how can you not be? You're here. You're here for something. And that's why my system is called the purpose-driven trauma healing system. Because you're alive for a reason. And I love this quote from, I think it was Big Albert, if I'm not mistaken, Einstein. Everyone's born a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will go its whole life believing it's stupid. That's my issue with the education system. Because it's just in this one box of, can you sit there, face the front, look at this, did it? And it's, granted, schooling systems have changed a bit, but that was the predominant thing. Put your hand up, answer me back. And if you were a visual learner with memory recall, you were classed as intelligent. Not everyone learns that way. There's 6 other learning styles. So, yeah, that the big thing, like the relationships that we have growing up, they form how we attach to people growing up. Do you know about attachment styles? Yeah. So we want to get back to that secure attachment, and it's again security. The underpinning thing is safety. But beyond that, at a deeper level, it's like, are you secure enough to be you? All of you, both sides. Can you walk your path regardless of what people will say? That's how I define success. Is the ability to live in your values irrespective of past experiences or external opinions. So.
Then how do people find their values? Like everything we're saying, like if someone's listening to this, they're like,
yeah, but how
do I find my values? Like how do I do that and that? Yeah.
I've got a process of doing it, questions, and I don't like that kind of, I've got the way and I'm going to hold it in the vault, come and buy my shit. Let me give the guys some tangible stuff. This might be a little bit morbid, but if you had 6 months left to live, what would you do? Because you've lost the ability to procrastinate now and waste time. So you will only make time for things that are truly valuable. Now, this is what I've made up. I believe there's 4 categories. Master values, master value, the default values, social values, and our personal values. Personal values are the keys to your freedom. The master value is spirituality, right? It's a really silly word. I'm such a spiritual person. Where is spirit not? That dog shit in the street, that's part of spirit. So everything is spirit. It's all the same source energy. So spirituality governs everything. The default values are health, wealth, and family. If you're alive enough to listen to this, regardless of how your physical, mental, emotional condition is, you're alive. There's a default value in health. There's also a default value in family, because whether you've had a very close upbringing or traumatic, or you're brought up in like Boston or care or social work or whatever, a sperm and an egg somewhere birthed you. And if you never had a very connected family life, that void will probably be why family is the highest value of yours. Because what you grew up perceiving you didn't have is what you are spontaneously inspired to go and get as an adult and create. And there might be some people that are scared to do that, but the fear's false. So it's not that they don't value family, it's they're scared to value family because the inner child was so wounded, and the association is that that's toxic. So I hear it for a lot of people that reach out to me. Like, I don't know if I ever want to be a mother. I was like, that's okay. Why do you feel you need to? Social values, pressure. And they go, and I was like, right, if I could, and I can't, but if I could guarantee that you don't live out the toxic traits of mum and dad, and you could give the polar opposite to what you experienced growing up, would you fear being a mum? And they always say no. So it's not that they don't want to be a mum, they're scared to repeat what was handed to them.
Right.
Right. So health and family and wealth. I remember, I'll tell a funny story quickly. Sorry, for any vegans out there, I'm poking fun. I love vegans. I love vegetables. I eat a lot of them. But there was a guy, he was a yogi guy, and he was at a workshop that I was doing in Perth, Australia, 2017 or something like that. And the yogi vegans have got this kind of, it's really happy accent. It doesn't matter where they are in the world, they all kind of sound the same. It's like, yeah, man, like I just really don't value money. Yeah, it's kind of like it's just like an energy currency for me. It's just like means of fair exchange. And I was like, right, so why wouldn't you value fair exchange? He's like, yeah, just the traditional thing. And I said, but you don't see it as the traditional, you're reframing it. I said, and I totally agree. That's how I actually define it, is energy currency as a means of fair exchange. And he said, yeah, he said, I just don't. And I said, listen, mate, I mean, that's bollocks. I said, can I just play with you a wee bit here? And he's like, yeah. I said, that's bullshit. He said, you've heard that. I said, let's play a game. Money is the root of all evil. Everybody said the same thing. Money doesn't grow on. I say, if you hear it often enough, you start to believe it, right? And then when we go through certain things, and like you find your calling as a yoga instructor or whatever, and I was like, can I just ask you, mate, where did you do your qualification? Ubud, ironically, Bali. And I went, cool. Did Qantas fly you over there themselves? Because they knew that you were going to be the best yoga instructor that Western Australia's ever seen. I said, I'm not poking fun, you might well be. Who am I don't know. I said, did Qantas fly you over there? It's like, no. I went, Air Asia? He's like, no. I went, Tiger Air? I went, no. I went, how'd you get there? I went, on a plane. And I went, and how did you buy your ticket? And he's like, well, I had to pay for it, obviously. I was like, mate, I said, you need to redefine the negative connotations and associations that you have with that. I said, because you could be the most conscious, hyper self-aware, nudist permaculturist the world has ever seen. I said, but let me tell you something, the council isn't going to let you just start planting seeds in the local park to grow your food. It's not going to let you pitch a tent to live there, and you can't walk around with no clothes on in a park where their kids might be. Somebody's going to have something to do with that. I said, so money from a default point of view buys you food, buys you shelter, and buys you clothes. I said, so just own that for a bit. I said, look, how are you wearing all this stuff? He's like, I get what you mean. I said, right, so is there a deeper part where you maybe relate your self-worth to your net worth? Or you don't want to relate it to that? And I might be grossly misquoted here, but my ex-wife, she was self-taught astrologist. She was fantastic. But I'm pretty sure like self-worth and net worth from memory are in the same astrological house. So this is where you see a lot of people that have got a lot of money. They typically have a lot of confidence and certainty in who they are as a person. So this guy just never really knew what he was doing. Next time he come back to me like a year or something later, I just randomly bumped into him at a coffee shop, and he was running retreats here and I started making like 4 or 5 figure sales. And I said, how do you feel? And he went, I've never been able to be of more service. I mean, is money a bad thing? And he's like, I went, is it a good thing either? And he's like, it's just a thing. And I went, boom, brother, it's just a thing. It's just a thing. Like, we've got to put labels on things to make sense of it in our emotional journey as a human. I said, but it's neither and it's also both. It just depends how you use it. So, master spirituality, default health, wealth and family. It's just basically you're alive, you were born, you're alive, and you need to pay to stay alive for certain things. Social values are typically the things we take on for parents, peers, probably influencers nowadays.
Yeah.
The things that anytime you say, I know I should do that. Well, you shouldn't, because if you were really in your soul's path to do it, you would have done it. You feel obliged to do it. You feel pressured to do it. But this is where inspiration will come in. Now, some days we can't be asked. We're just tired. Maybe you've been of service for 3-4 days running a deep transformative retreat, and you're just having a human day. You're just sitting in your ass. But if it's things where it's a pattern, where you're procrastinating, hesitating and frustrating yourself, it's because you're trying to live in someone else's idea of who you should be rather than who you are. And your personal values are exactly who you are. As I said, they can come from 1 or 2 places. What you perceive you were missing growing up, you're inspired to go out and create as an adult, all the things that you loved your whole life you want to keep doing. So that's the 4 categories. So when you get beyond time and space and you put yourself into that position, there's not 6 months in one day, there's not 6 months in 1 minute, 6 months in 1 second. After 6 months, you leave this physical earth. So if there was no limitations other than the time, and you can't ask for more time for the people who think this is rubbing a genie, like 6 months, that's it. How would you spend that 6 months? What would you do? Who would you be with? Now, a lot of people who maybe aren't entrepreneurial by nature, or who haven't really sat with the depths of their pain because they're too scared, because the deeper the pain, the deeper the pleasure of equilibrating that and seeing, wow, fuck, this is who I am, this is why I'm here. The deeper the pain, the deeper the purpose. People that haven't done that will say things like, I would just want to spend it with family, maybe go on holiday together, Cool. That's not for me to say that's wrong, right? Me, I would find a way of how can I leverage my skills with the amount of people that I know to get this into teachable stuff that lives on after I'm gone. That'd probably be the first thing that I do, to be honest with you. Then I would just family, because connection is my highest value. It's when I feel deeply disconnected from my father, that void connection, or my mother or whoever. So connection is a big part of me. I'd probably spend it family, but I would travel a little bit as well. You know the book, The 5 Love Languages?
Yeah.
I believe they're 13.
Yeah, I was gonna touch on this. Yeah. Great, go for it.
Typical Libra, right? So quality time is high up for me, but I also have personal space of reflection. Like, I love being by myself.
Yeah, same.
Like typical Libra, it's like love making. It's like in, out, push, pull. Like, I love you, come close to me. Fuck off, get away from me. Right? We've had 2 days camped out now. Like, I need some space to decompress. And I think from our healers and coaches and mentors and guides out there, like, when you're so emotionally invested in that energy, it's so important to pull yourself back and ground and just let yourself be and feed the inner child. Like, it doesn't need to be raw cacao. I'll tell you what, a dairy milk, have a fucking dairy milk. If you want a beer, have a beer. Like, whatever. It's like, if you think these 3D things are going to really kill you, like, you're missing the point of it all. But allow yourself to live is what I'm saying. I'm saying not eat junk food for the rest of your life, but have the human experience. If you want wine gums or Doritos or whatever it may be, like, have it. Watch fucking Friends back to back for a day in your bed. Don't see any sunlight. Sleep. Whatever it may be, just ground. But yeah, like for me, quality time and personal space or reflection is such. Personal space and reflection is so important to me, and that showed up in relationships. I know I'm getting off on one here. I trust you to bring me back. A lot of relationships where they've broke down in communication, it's been insecure girls, which were mirroring part an insecure part of self, that took my absence to fill my cup back up as a fear of abandoning them. And I just got to a point though I would be happy to walk away from the relationship than abandon my needs, because I did do that for years. I would just hang fire. But then, as I said, I've felt things my whole life. I'm very sentient, I'm very emotional, very sensitive, so I need that so I can come back filled to give more. It's not an unhealthy demand, like leave me alone. It's like it's linked to my highest value of connection, but I need to reconnect with me first. So that bled into a lot of like failed relationships because they just couldn't handle that. And I think there's another quick point I want to touch on, that a lot of people seem to think that we've got all these spiritual catchphrases like, oh, everything is a mirror and a reflection. No, sometimes your light is just that bright that for the collective ascension of humanity, that situation was needed because they knew you could handle it. It's not because it's a part of self that you've not healed. I truly do believe that, the more I watch certain things. It's also an opportunity of going, right, where, humble yourself, where have I not integrated this? Or it may be a chance to integrate a boundary. Where it's a beautiful opportunity to go, I used to be the people pleaser here and I would let you talk to me like, like, no, I'd rather be too much for you than not enough for me. If this isn't that, cool, but you ain't talking to me like that. And that's it. And be firm with it without being aggressive or violent or passive aggressive with things. Like, I can speak my mind. I used to open my mouth and let my belly rumble and I would be abusive to people, but it was coming from a place of hurt. So I wanted to hurt, and deeper than that, it was actually a place of connection. So I mean, if I can hurt them the way I've been hurt, we've got a point in common, right, and then we can connect at a deeper subconscious level. Yeah. As crazy as that sounds, I get it. So the values, like, you would have no time to do anything other than your personal values. That's a question. Other things are like, what do you? Here's a fun one. If you won the lottery tonight, like a big, like Euro Millions, 50 million, something insane. If you won the lottery tonight, what's the first 7 things you would do?
And they have to think about that. The first 7 things.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Off the cuff.
Play with me.
Well, a big goal of mine is to retire my parents.
Yeah.
Like for the rest of their life, which is like, what, 30 years, 40 years. Buy them their dream house, or just however they want to do. Like, my mum wants to travel, so just like fund all of her travels for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. Mostly selfless stuff, obviously, like have more impact with growing my audience, more like I could buy so much ads on, more impact for people.
Always the entrepreneur, I love it.
Yeah.
What you're telling me is your values.
Yeah.
Right now. So family,
yeah,
connection, contribution,
yeah,
service,
yeah,
education, teaching, learning.
And of course I travel now, but just in better style and for longer, I guess. I don't know. I'm pretty happy in Bali, so
yeah.
I probably my life wouldn't change that much.
Yeah.
Just outside of myself, it would change.
Yeah. So which is cool, which means you're on path.
Yeah.
You're living your values right now. Communication, teaching, all this.
Yeah.
You're helping families right now by understanding this.
Yeah.
Because whether you are the father, the mother, or the kid, you as you are the head of the house. Because you're the most important person in your life. Always. So as long as you're alive, there's a family.
Yeah, and then my brother, I'd probably just put more into his endeavors because he's a music artist.
Wow.
So I'd probably just like fund him more, I guess. And yeah,
it's cool, man. And you can tell by the little wry smile. They're a little bit glazed. Yeah. This is true.
Yeah. You can sense it.
It means something, yeah, you feel it.
Absolutely. And then you got my values pretty nailed down. Like those are like 4 of my main values. Yeah. My number 1 value is love.
Love?
Yeah.
Yep. How does that show up though for you?
Well, in everything I do. Like what that means to me is my heart is open everywhere with everyone. That's what it means. Nice. But there's a detriment to that. Like sometimes I feel too much.
Yeah.
Like I just spoke to my ex-girlfriend a couple of months ago, and I had a panic attack after I spoke to her because she said that she couldn't move on from me for 5 years. We broke up 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And she still can't. She said she's not able to fully open her heart because she's scared of it getting hurt again.
Yeah.
And I just felt that so deeply. Next day I woke up with a panic attack.
Yeah.
It's like I feel so much. So the love part has a dark side to it, if you know.
So with divine love that is ever present. So if we think about it like for the people that are listening only, I'm putting my hand up away. Imagine going as high as I can beyond this world, universe, galaxies, like all the way up to the 0 point of creation, right? And that frequency just really going off the charts, and it slows down as it kind of lowers in frequency. It will slow, the wave pattern will slow, and it slows to a point where it can't slow anymore. And this is where the scientists talk about when the Big Bang happened, saying it collapses together and then it fractures into 2 parts, and then it slows down more and more and more into what we see as physical solids. But if we put that table under a microscope, it's the same as our human bodies. As we go into the cells, it's like mostly space with just particles bouncing off each other. So what does that mean? So at the point of the Big Bang, that was at the speed of light, meaning everything I spoke about before that point must exist in darkness. But within that darkness, we also fill it with our consciousness beyond the 5 senses. Because the 5 senses only occur lower than the Big Bang. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So in that blackness is what Dr. Joe would reference as the quantum field. The infinite potentialities, Deepak used to say. They're just that, yeah, all possibilities exist. But if we are stuck, so remember that divine love goes from source all the way right through and exists within that empty space within us at the micro level, within that as well. It's never not present. But from the Big Bang down, from that duality, that physicality of duality, we've got the 2 sides of the 3D love. So we'll see a dark part and a light part. But love is what actually combines the both of them. Does this make sense?
Yep.
So when, I'll give you a tangible example, like with kids acting up, parents never don't love them. They might strongly fucking dislike them at that moment because they're showing little dark parts. But it's actually equal and opposite chance to shine. You've got a chance to maybe repaint them differently than what we experienced growing up. But it may have been a backhander or a belt or a wooden spoon, or my mum had this crucifix ring. She was so quick, mate. This wee backhander, I would end up with a Jesus imprint. Whatever it may be, like we don't need to do that. We can, within that darkness, we can choose another thing because love is ever present. We'll tap into it depending on what side we're in, because we'll equate the positive to love, but there's only one side of it. So love knows it's both. That's the shadow and the light. So it's not for me to say that love isn't yours, but I would say it's more, I don't want to say anything actually, I'll let you ponder deeper within that. But yeah, the panic attack is just like, again, you're beautiful ability to connect with people and feel their pain when they're going on. It might not feel pleasurable to you, and you might have took that on. So you hear these people say, "Oh, I'm a real empath." We've all got the capability to be empathetic. What they're probably saying is that they're an HSP, a highly sensitive person. But if you haven't done the deep work and have ways to manage and regulate your nervous system, which I think is the key component for any relationship, because it means you're not going to be triggered by anyone else. Or if you are, you can regulate.
So ways to regulate is like what we talked about earlier: meditation, breath work.
Yeah, meditation isn't the first thing I would go to. Dr. Joe wouldn't like that, because if you've got trauma in the body, having people to meditate properly when they get beyond the body is terrifying.
Really?
Because they need to leave. They're already clinging to this. They're really anxious, and then you're asking them to go up into this ascended level of consciousness. They're abandoning their body and they're freaking out. They already don't feel safe enough to do that. So for sometimes it's not. To me, it's not always the most appropriate way to go about it. Breath work is another one. We've spoken about this in great depth. For the conscious connected breath, phenomenal. Yeah. Breathwork practitioner myself. It's a great tool.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That I use in. But it seems to be the fashionable go-to on Instagram just now because of like Tumo breath and things like Wim Hof and making it more.
It's definitely trending now.
Oh yeah, it's trending, bro. But again, relationships to me are the primary food of life. If you walk into one of my sessions, I'm doing a healing session, I haven't earned your trust. And if you're one of 10, 20, 50, 100 people there, we're not going to get the opportunity to discuss what potentially could be trapped in the body-mind. So I think it's grossly irresponsible for me just to have this one-stop shop way of doing an up-regulating breath where I don't know if your nervous system can handle that. And it's not so much about the going up, it's the coming back. So we can only fly if we've got a stable runway. And if people don't feel stable in their body, like to me, meditation, plant medicines, like they'll have these amazing esoteric experiences when they get there, but it's then coming back, like it's the integration that really gets the results. And if people already don't feel safe in their body, they don't know. Like in those experiences, there may be downloads that show them how to do it, what to do it. I don't know. But I just think from a practitioner point of view, from a trauma focus, it wouldn't be my first protocol. I would need to get to know the person more, and they would need to see that I walk my talk, I've got the knowledge, I've done the study, and I've got the experience of going through what they've been through and help them through certain things. And as I get them what they want and what they need, then they trust me a wee bit more. Then we can go deeper into the trauma. But just going, hey, let's get this away as soon as possible, that again, that's what's the trauma response. For me, it was hearing my dad say he's too slow. So everything in that moment because, right, I need to go faster. So I would get into relationships quickly, I would jump back out. My story would be, I healed cancer in 12 weeks. Even that was attached to that need for speed, rather than just be. Like, flow is slow. It's also fluent fast. What did it say? Slow is steady, steady is fast.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Smooth is slow.
Smooth is slow.
Slow is fast. No, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Something like that.
We got there. So yeah, it wouldn't be my first couple. Used to be. Again, as I said, like similar to the conscious collapse, I realised, wow, this might be not best for their nervous system. The good thing is if I've taught that and they've embodied it and it's becoming a habitual practice, when we go deeper in, when they come back out, and then, because they're not going to come back as the same person through these modalities. And it shakes it up at a cellular level. Now you've got a skill set that you can go to that can calm the nervous system and self-regulate. I don't want clients to need me. I want to teach them so that they realise they only need themselves, but not from a wounded place of keeping people out. Just realise when the shit hits the fan, they're the person that they can depend on. But life is a little bit more fun and connected when we share it with other people.
That's good. I like you said that you don't want clients to need you, because that's a big thing in the industry that we see is practitioners just keeping the clients on the conveyor belt, and they never actually get better. It's just the coach is getting more money, but the client's actually not actually making any progress.
Yep. Yeah. So as I say it, time is again the duality. See both sides. Good electricians, bad electricians. Good plumbers, bad plumbers. Good coaches, bad coaches. It's like, but again, it's subjective to what you categorise as good or bad. That will pull at your value of contribution, because you want to give from a place of truth. So when you're seeing people just kind of, it's the old school psychologist, it's tell me about that. Time up. See you next week. And there's no tools of integration.
Yes.
And again, I'm being a little bit facetious and playful here. Not everyone's like that. Mm-hmm. But for me, yeah, it needs to be. Excuse me. It needs to be the body and the mind. So the mind needs to understand the intellectual process, but people don't want information; they want transformation.
Yep.
So the body needs to know, right, as you said, but how? How do I do it? How do I go away and give my body experience of making this a go-to daily practice? And that's where light work and play is the daily practice. I'm not saying sit and go into the depths of your shadow every single day. No, I've done that. It is a horrible existence. I get very addicted to the shadow work that I completely forgot to let light in. And this is where people then go, they become quite numb to life. They activate the freeze response to the nervous system. It's just go, fuck personal development, I ain't touching that. That fucked me up. And to be honest, I agree with that. Like, personal development, I don't see very many persons developing. If I'm honest. Like, there's a lot of info.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that can't wait to tell you everything they've done.
Yeah.
Like, cool, how do you feel? I had a woman on a masterclass I did the other week there, and it was like, she was a self-compassion coach, and this, that, and the other, and I was like, wow, cool. And then we had a follow-up call, and I went through, and I was like, she was so scared to die alone. She had zero compassion for self. But you know what? That's what will make her a great coach, because the void is it. But the value she wants to give to other people, which she hasn't had, but she's not embodied it yet. And I see that for a lot of these coaches. And I've done it as well, mate, to be honest. When I realised, so I've got a conscience, when I realised I was doing it, again, the core wind of guilt was activated. I was like, oh, fuck, man, I'm like messing these people up. I would learn something, and it was as if my brain would go into the category of all the fucked up people I know. I'm like, oh, this would be amazing for them, and then I would start semi-teaching it, because that's what I did as a kid. I'd watch my dad show us how to play golf, how to play football, and I'd be out in the garden showing all my mates, rather than me just going and playing golf and playing football. So I would learn these things, but I had took the time to integrate it. And it was coming from a healthy place of wanting to be of more service, but it wasn't an authentic service because I hadn't yet embodied it. And when I became aware of that, I was like, oh shit. No, you don't need to be the town crier. You don't need to walk about with a bell telling everyone, Ron Burgundy, hey, come here and see how good I look, how amazing I am at my job. If you're good, the word will get out. Yeah. You don't need to shout it. And it goes back to what my mentor said about being a herder. It was a fear of abandonment. I was trying to bring everyone along with me. So it goes deep, this consciousness shit, man.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. It is a lot. And it's something that you can't just, like, there's a book, it's about sales. It's the title is, you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. And that's like, it's like this work, right? Like, even if you go to a 3-day event, like, your work is not done. It's just, that's pretty much just the beginning. It's like getting the awareness first, like you said. It's like the first step to everything, right?
For sure, mate. How did you learn to ride a bike?
Just repetition, just failure,
falling off it,
getting up, getting back on it. Yeah. So
that's the thing, that you can't ride a bike properly until you fell off it. But you don't even have the chance to fall off if you don't have the courage to get in the saddle. And sadly, that's a lot of people. They don't even give themselves a chance to fail.
Yep, exactly. So what else? Let's touch on quickly what the 13 love languages are, because we touched on that previously, but we didn't get through the whole 13. Can you remember them all?
I should be if I created a bloody thing. The first thing I want to say is we give love from what was modelled to us as well, from a value point of view. We also give love from a void point of view, what we perceive we didn't have, we do that. But typically we'll repeat the patterns. So for me, we'll start with the obvious one, which is tough love, right? Now that might drive out that inner competitor and make you more resilient and blah, 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 but it's never our first choice, especially as kids. Nobody wants fucking tough love, and you appreciate elements of it as you get older, but that's how I kind of turned up in relationships, if I'm honest, mate. I would get off and telling them what they didn't want to hear, and it may have been right, but it was delivered from a place of ego, and it wasn't delivered from a place of compassion and empathy. And again, for the most part, I wasn't aware of that, and when I did, I felt, oh shit, that's not good. So tough love is one. Go to the opposite side of the spectrum, and again, this is never your first choice, but to me I think it's the most important, which is knowing your partner's trauma and holding that, not fixing it. Men, not fixing it, holding it. And it's such a powerful connection can be made with your woman, and I'm speaking like a straight monogamous heterosexual man, because that's my background, that's who I am, that's my dealings. But when we can ask, thanks for sharing with me, do you want any advice to help move through this painful situation just now, or do you just want me to be there for you to vent to and give you a hug? Like, that can shift your relationship dynamics so much, mate. But from a wiring point of view, as men, we're wired to see problem solution. So women are just more sentient. It just feels, hey, she did this to me at work, and that fucking bitch. Well, see when you get in tomorrow, make sure you say this, this, and this. Like, you're not listening to me. Yeah, that's terrible. I'm not asking for your advice. And we go, what the fuck are you asking me then? You're just venting about nothing here. Start wasting my time. So that's so important. It's just presence is key. Just be there. Just, you don't need to feel what you said about your ex and take it all on as yours, but just, it's like the squat rack. Spot them. Don't lift it for them, because then you're robbing them. But it's so important to know that, and from a place of non-judgment and compassion, because what they've experienced is generational, this stuff. It comes all the way right through, and then of course there's complex traumas and things in there as well. So that's to tough love and holding healing space. Quality time, personal space of reflection, playful tactile touch, sexual intimate connection, words of praise, saying I love you, very different. PDAs, public displays of affection. Sometimes it's a kiss and cuddle, and because your inner child might like, I feel good that she's happy to be seen with me, or maybe a wee tag in social media, or I don't know, a card, or hosting a surprise party, all these kind of things. Where are we at? Gifts and presents still in there. It's usually the bottom for a lot of people, other than tough love. Where are we at? 10?
Yep.
Mindful acts of service. I should be able to rattle these off. I'm trying to remember the diagram that I've created. Will come back to me.
So why is there 13? Because the original 5 are acts of service, quality time, gifts, words of affirmation, and physical touch, yeah. Right? So why have you made 13? Why do you think there should be 13 instead of 5?
I was, again, the wounds is the wisdom. So I spoke about the father wound, my father wisdom.
Yeah.
So I was travelling, so I'm going to leave a cliffhanger here. I was engaged to be married the 13th of July 2015. I called the wedding off with 11 weeks to go. I married someone else on the 11th of August, and there was no crossover.
Wow.
Let that sit for a minute.
Damn.
6 months later, 3 days after my mother's birthday, I get diagnosed with cancer. This is now 2016, March 2016. coming up to October 2017, my nephew is about to turn 1, and we fly back from Australia to Scotland for the first time. Now, in between time, I've had the kind of online bullying and all that other stuff, so I'm having all these cellular memories start to come up about going back to Scotland, a little bit of anxiety. So we're on the plane, and I go to check my phone, and I go to have one last look before you put it on aeroplane mode. And we checked in, me and the wife, like, checked in the airport, Glasgow, here we come, da-da-da-da. And my dad had replied saying, can't wait to see you, Spark and Sam, that was her name. He says, can't wait to see you, Spark and Sam. Just remember, son, the people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter. I've got your front and back and sides. Anyone's got anything to say, they can politely fucking jog on. I love you. And I took a panic attack. Now, my wife never knew what I was reading. She thought I was anxious about flying back to Glasgow. And I mean, this was a proper one. I hadn't took this for maybe 3-4 years previous at this level. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on the way out. And the plane's just starting to take off, by the way.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, standing up, taking the belt off, and the flight attendant's like, sit down, son. Like, Sam's like, love, you've got to... I was like, I could not breathe, I could not speak. And then this, God love her, this wee angel came over and said, there's 3 empty seats there, do you want to go in there? Like, she came over and she get water, but Sam's looking over, she's like, you need to just sit, I've got him. So she's sitting there putting water in my face and clapping, and then I kind of, as if I drift off, and then I hear the ding, the seat belts. So it's only like 5-10 minutes, but I go out my boy, I come back, and then I feel calm, and then I go over and I just burst into tears to my wife, and I go, he does love me. She's like, what? I was like, he does love me. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, my dad. I was like, he said, he never, so this was 2017, so 5 years ago, I'd been 34. I had convinced myself for 34 years I didn't need to hear that. He'd never told me he loved me.
Wow. Now,
I've said many times in this, I got the praise if I was good. I also got the opposite side, but hearing those little 3 words is different to words of affirmation. That was the first thing. I spent the rest of the flight writing the 13 love languages. So my father's the reason for doing that. Because my father, he's overweight. And we went back in that trip, and my wife had said, I'm a bit more attracted to you in Scotland. You seem more relaxed. And I was like, oh, really? I don't fucking feel it. From back here. She said, no, the banter with the family and stuff. She said, I know, like you'd said about growing up, you've had the teenage button heads with your dad and you and your... She said, but by God, you and your mum are very similar. She's like, you make way more sense to me. And I said, yeah. I said, it's interesting watching my mum and dad's dynamic, because they're like Punch and Judy. But it just works. They're just always niggling at each other, but they love each other. There's a lot of play and fun and laughter. But I couldn't handle it, mate. I could not be married to my mother or married to my dad. But for them, it just works. And my mum's like hyper Catholic, super Catholic. I'm a recovering Catholic. And I said to my wife at the time, I went, do you know what? I said, my mum just needs a right good fuck. And she said, love. I was like, I'm telling you. I said, I've been thinking about this. I said, because physical touch is one. I said, my dad's really playful with my mum. Like, he'll walk past and he'll tickle and cuddle and he'll cuddle in, and my mum will always like kind of fake beat him up. And then he'll do this. He's a big kid, man. And she's like, oh, son, in you come. They're really playful. But my dad's bad diet, mate, you know this for the performance, mate, his testosterone will be through the floor, estrogen through the roof, shame as a man, guilt, When he rolls over in bed, mate, I can hear it. Now, I'm not painting a picture of some like American guy that needs a crane to get out of his bed and has a Channel 4 documentary about him, but he's big. But again, similar to how he spoke to me growing up, he knows there's right and wrong, and he knows, and there'll be shame attached to that. And my dad, when he goes into the, I'm reminded of my cancer every day I go for a shower, but I've equilibrated the wound and the wisdom. Every day my dad goes for a shower, he'll be reminded of feeling less than a man, I feel. never had this conversation, mate. I'm really being assumptive here, but he's not going to get to see that. He won't have saw that for many a year, and I very much doubt that they're sexually active. Might be like a lunar eclipse, happens every now and again and it's special, but I don't see it. And growing up with that Catholic background as well, there was a lot of sexual shame. Not overly for my mum and dad, to be fair to them, but just it was the taboo subject. Like watching Titanic and Kate, what's her name, getting her drawing and there's a boob in it, my mum was like, Tam, turn that over. It was like that. It was really taboo, mate, and that's why I think I spent the majority of my 20s like a walking hard on, mate. I was just like anything, just and it was also a means to perform, to go back to my wounding. My thing would be I would sleep with this girl and I would give her the best 2-3 hours a night and she'll go and tell her pals and I'll sleep with them over the next couple of weeks. That was my tactics, man. And I was deeply looking for connection, but I was so fucking scared of it, man. So it just became this player, but then I got to connect with the boys. Oh yeah, did that, fucked up, did that, all that bullshit that we go through, mate. And when you say it loud, I mean, there's no guilt or shame, mate, because it's a big intricate part of what I do now. But I've carried a lot of guilt and shame with that, because how I used to treat them, mate, yeah, you would have the porn star fucking and all the rest of it, but there was real emptiness, like real unfulfillment. You go, is this that? No. So when I look at that and I know the sacred container that a conscious relationship is, and the beauty and the power of our sexual energy, to see my mum and dad without that, like beyond the gads is a Scottish term for like disgust, like gads, you'd go, oh, mum and dad doing it. Growing up, of course, that's a horrible thought. Even now, like, I would never want to be a front row seat of that. But from an emotional point of view, it makes me sad that they don't have that. So that's where that then get fractured, the physical. But they make up for it by being very tactile, very playful.
Right.
There's a lot of reassurance and cuddles and kisses and fake my mum beating them up and all that, and they're just like the two big kids, man.
Yeah,
they really are. So that's that side of things. Saying I love you, the trauma was a big one, because I'm going, they just don't know why they behave in certain ways. The tough love, again, that's what was handed to me. My mum as well, like her father left when she was 2. My aunt was 10 years older than my mum, so my aunt had to work at 15 to support my gran. So my mum was 5, she was coming into an empty house, starting coal fires, cooking, cleaning, walking the dog at 5 years old. So she was very, very lonely, and all she had, to be honest, was her faith. So I could show her what God is, but in doing that I would massively traumatise her, because she would think that 65 years of being alive has been a fake. So sometimes it's like knowledge is knowing what to say, wisdom is knowing whether to say it or not. And I wouldn't, like, the thing is, why would I don't want my mum to think like me. She's perfect as she is.
Right.
And that's one of her highest values. So why would I want to take that away? So sometimes you just, again, it's just layers of consciousness as you go through. What other ones do we have? Mindful acts of service, adventures and trips away together. I never said that. I think that's a big one.
Why isn't that under quality time though?
It can be, but it depends on how you spend that. I know that we could then open quality time up to everything, but quality time to me, to be honest, is cooking or ordering our favourite food with some form of chocolate in there, watching a movie and cuddled up, not necessarily having sex. Could be, depending on the chocolate coma. If I feel sex enough.
Interesting. So you categorise it that accurately.
It's based on my values.
Right.
But adventures and trips away together, because the quality time, I've found that I can only have... Quality time to me is just pure presence.
Yeah.
Adventure and trips away is more into the unknown. The quality time with that presence is more... It's more... there's like a a security. You know what's involved with the adventures is stepping into the unknown together. So you're looking at, oh, wow, I'm going. That might be travel. It might be going to Uluwatu. It might be going to a new restaurant that you've never experienced before, but something that you feel a little bit adventurous. So there's been a few. I know quality time can be quite subjective, but that's based in me. To me, it's just pure presence. And the last one that I forgot about, because quality time, again, it can encapsulate a lot of them, but words of affirmation, as he had, like mine's is words of praise, and the other one is deep conversations in life. My mum and dad don't have that. They'll back each other up.
Yeah.
They'll say nice things. They'll give each other tough love. You're not fucking doing this and da-da-da-da. And everything's growth. But the deep conversations in life want to know that there's more. No. Unless it's from a Bible passage and related to Catholicism and God. Yeah. No. They never speak about that stuff, which is why I trigger them so much when I speak about this shit.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's showing the love language is letting their trauma come to the surface.
Yeah, it's like there's that quote, you can, if you feel you're so enlightened, go and spend 2 weeks with your parents.
Yeah.
They know our triggers.
But yeah, they've played a blinder.
Yeah.
They really have.
Yeah.
They really have. Nothing is missing. And I really mean that. Before I've said it and not really embodied it, now I get it. Because I've just recently had 2 years back home, and it was tough, man. It was tough. I just felt so like my mother, to be honest. I think it was some of my mother's wound I was healing parts of my mother's wound, which she was taking on her loneliness as a kid. Because I've always felt with the black sheep. I've always felt that people don't understand me. And here I am in my hometown, and I was catching up with some friends, and I was just completely ignorant because that hasn't been my environment. And then you're going to watch boxing or something together, but then next thing there's no one there. You're like, what the fuck is it? And you go into the kitchen and there's lines of coke on the kitchen worktop, and I'm thinking, and they saw my face and they're like, oh, you alright, mate? And I'm going, aye, sorry. Because they thought I was judging them, but I was just shocked. I felt a bit naive, going, oh, this is still a thing here. Like, I'm so far removed from that life. And I just felt, I can't be about them. And it was sad, mate, because I knew I had to leave them. Snoop Dogg talks about bridging the gap. It's like when you're coming up, he says you and the homies come up together. He said, but as you grow, they stay where they are. And the only way of staying connected is for you to come back down. But no, they've got to come up. And it's that whole acceptance that they might never. And that's okay. It's not your path. But I did feel like I felt alone. Felt deeply lonely. I'm like, wow, I'm so, like, my biggest value.
That explains it, right?
Yeah. Felt so disconnected, man. But the beautiful other side was I was so connected to the land. So many parts of Scotland I went with during lockdown. Fuck that, I'm not doing lockdown. Freedom's a big part of mine. And I just connected higher and connected to a dear, God bless him, Stephen Slavin, rest in peace, brother, a dear friend of mine that I went through school with, who was showing me some really interesting things of our local area, ley lines of energy and masculine and feminine energetic portals, and linked to a lot of the COVID fuckery that's going on, to be honest. And I remember asking him, because quality time's a big thing for me, so I don't give my time away. For like, oh cool, what do you want? And I'll frame it first and see if it's worth my time. He asked me he said, I've got something cool to show you. And I never even asked him why. I just went, okay. And then when he was showing me certain things, it blew my mind. And I said, can I just ask, why me though? And he liked a puff. And he said, you're one of the most spiritual people I know. You're one of the most connected people I know. And even if you never agreed or believed me, you would listen to me without me making me feel as if I was an idiot that had just smoked too much green. And I was like, cool, man. And sadly, I was over in Barcelona in August 2020. And I would have been with him and my other mate, Big Turtle. They were doing the lochs in the Outer Hebrides Islands of Scotland, up the northwest. He had a real affiliation with the Virgin Mary, Our Lady, and he was following the Grail Trail with a lot of things, and he drowned in a loch, which we call, like you've heard of the Loch Ness Monster. Loch is just a Scottish word for lake, but a lot of them are so bottomless. And he went out, and my big mate was in the camper van and just went, there's a lot of silence, I'm not hearing very many waves or paddles or like ripples. Popped out and his hands were above the loch, and he went down and passed away. That really, wow. I'm still left with so many unanswered questions. I can picture him here just now, mate, just sitting there, a big 5 skinner with St. Pierre, just going, yeah, I've gave you the breadcrumbs, you can go and figure it out. But I would never have connected with him. If I had my back, I would never have connected to the land. I would have never connected to God from the conscious level that I've had as a 3D human. I've always equated it to religion. So there were so many beautiful insights again back to Scotland. But my mum had said to me after like a traumatic experience that I was going through there, I was involved with I'm not a very nice girl, but again, she highlighted a lot of things, and my mum said, you're never going to have peace here. It breaks my heart. She said, but when you've healed this, you go and you live your life.
Do you believe that? You're never going to have peace there?
It's not. I need the sunshine anyway, mate, to be honest. It's too bloody cold, Scotland.
Yeah.
But I've always felt like Scotland's football team's been doing really well of recent, which is a first in my lifetime. And Hampden was absolutely rocking. I woke up, we're obviously 7-8 hours in front, so I woke up this morning, I checked, and we had won, and we get through, and it was rocking, and I just started crying, mate. I went, I love my country, but I've never felt as if it's loved me back. I've always felt so misunderstood. But it was all a fundamental part of the soul's journey for all of us, which is know thyself. And stop delegating it, fitting in with everyone else. So as long as
that's the journey of life, isn't it? Know thyself.
I truly believe it. I truly believe it is, mate.
It's like every day I'm just focused on mastering myself. Because I believe that once I feel like I've mastered myself, which I think is an ongoing process, like the better my life will become, and then the less I will do things out of fear, rather inspiration, and in alignment with my values, like yourself.
You're smashing it out of the park,
Yeah, thanks. So the last question before we wrap it up, what is the meaning of life to you? I ask every guest this because there's always a different answer. It's so fascinating to hear.
Growth and expansion and love. And tangibly healing your inner wounds to allow your soul to be free to do what it's here to do. And ultimately, however that subjectively looks, comes back to expanding and growing in love.
I like that. Nice and simple. Yeah, that's awesome. It's very powerful as well. If people really internalize what you just said there.
It's a great question, man.
It's like a summary of everything we just spoke about, actually.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can overcomplicate things. Life. I'll leave you what I think we all want. To be loved and accepted for who we are, doing the things we love, with the people we love the most, for as long as possible, in the best health possible. That's it.
That's awesome. That's a great note to end on. Mark, thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Legend.
That was awesome. So where can people find out more about you before we head off?
Instagram's probably the best.
All right, cool. I'll link it up.
Still quite like the feel of that for now.
All right, cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I'll link up the Instagram, TRYSTEDSOUL.
That's the one, mate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. See you in the next one. Ciao.